This is Eduardo from Mexico City. One thing that's been on my mind lately, how to create routine, create new habits without feeling like you are trapped in a loop or you are repeating yourself day after day, like creating a routine that feels dynamic, but at the same time that it's enhancing your practice, your process, and doing the repetition that needs to be done.
Okay, here we are.
Where are we?
We're all here.
That's cool.
We're all here.
Just the last note, it's cool. It felt like
It's a very nice sustain.
very broadcast moment there.
Working with the Hazelrigg brothers, always you follow that final sustain out to where the hammers, where the piano mechanism sort of lifts off.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite parts of the Hazelrigg brothers recordings. It's that sort of lift off at the end.
I did notes on this record this week for this Berlin kind of Bowie-inspired art project. Berlin, like in Germany. And I've never had notes like them. The track spacing notes were let the piano ring out until the very end, which was 15, 20 seconds until the pedal lifts, and then leave a 13-second gap to the next track.
Wait.
Yes, sir. It's great. And actually, when you hear it, it's like I would and could never do this. Actually, that's a lovely gap until the next song. It actually feels great. And if you're making an art project, why not leave a 13-second gap? Like, don't be scared that people are going to leave. It's cool.
But are they burning a CD for their car, or are they going to listen on Spotify because then no one's going to hear it?
Well, the 13 seconds, I don't know where it's going to get listened to, but the 13 seconds goes on the end of the track, the previous track, so that it flows in that way, So if you play just that one song, if it makes its way onto the Hot 100,
there will be a 13-second gap in the Hot 100.
Yeah.
Not on the radio. Radio edit, they're cutting that part.
Yeah, on a playlist, it's a little antisocial, but in the context of an album.
Sorry, this is actually really funny. That's a lovely gap that feels so... Thinking about the fact that I mixed a song that was 1 minute and 55 seconds today, 13 seconds is...
Of silence?
That's a big percentage.
That's a big
of the
percentage.
Whole song.
That's like 12% of the song.
I love that the young guy at the table is genuinely terrified of the idea of silence.
Who also...
Wait a second.
No. Someone that loves silence. Like,
yeah, I know, I'm kidding.
Spent a fair amount of time in a hotel room with someone else this weekend with a lot of silence occurring, and it was just a really beautiful moment. It's like, I'm like looking for silence, and that still makes me uncomfortable.
Let's share it with the public. Just some. Speaking of which, does anyone remember like radio dead air, like real dead air on a radio station where the you know what automatic gain control is on a radio stations have like so much processing, but they have automatic gain control, which is very slow leveling that will. So say for example, we came in after the music and we were all talking quieter than we should. The automatic gain control over 10 or 15 seconds will just bring up the level of the whole feed. But if there's no feed, it brings up the noise. Yeah. And it's this like, really cool memory of my child. And like dead air on a national radio station in Ireland where like, this is not supposed to happen. There's only 2 fucking stations. We can't keep them running. and it goes to noise. It's like late at night. It's like cool thing. Just another one of those sounds that'll never be heard.
Is it mono noise or stereo noise?
It would have been stereo.
Stereo noise,
we had
right?
stereo. We're not savages.
It's FM?
We were just poor.
You were FM when you were a kid?
Yeah, FM.
Wow.
Yeah.
Speaking of albums with long transitions and such, Ethan Grouska, our previous guest, produced a record for Manchester Orchestra. Came out last Friday.
Haven't listened yet. I'm excited to.
They're one of my favorite bands, so knowing that he was working on it was like...
Yeah, you were stoked.
An additional, it's like the cherry on top. And very interesting record. Like I played John their previous record, which I felt was, and they actually stated was their favorite record they've ever made. And this one, they were like, how do we... And Ethan could probably tell the story better, but basically, like, how do we do everything different. It's like opposite day on Seinfeld, George.
Costanza,
Yeah, you know, like, and they were really stretching what they do melodically, guitar-wise, drum-wise, tonally, like across all the instruments, like very different. But Andy Hull, the singer, songwriter, was talking about how all like the record's meant to be listened as one song basically, and all the tracks flow right into each other to the point that like you don't realize the song ended. It flows so well. That was probably my favorite part of the record, was not knowing like where you were, because like all of a sudden you're 3 songs deep.
That's the same thing with that Floating Points record that we're all super hyped on. It's I was in movement 4 and I thought I was still on the first track.
Right.
You know, I haven't had that experience in a while.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's really nice. Can we pull on 2 threads with one Ethan Grouska? I was going to bring up as well the piano preludes pieces that he put out. Come back to the conversation from the last few weeks of timelessness. I mean, this could have been recorded in 1862, and we'd all been. You haven't listened?
No.
Could have been recorded anywhere, anytime, and it just sounds like Debussy. It just sounds like those records that were existed in that time. And
any time since the invention of the piano,
yes,
we could listen to that either in person or on some recording with wine and be like, it is timeless in the at least that period after pianos were invented.
Wait, I can't wait now.
It's beautiful. Yeah. The third movement, or is it movement? Is that what he calls it?
Yeah, movements. Yeah.
It's crazy, and it's so short. You just listen.
Oh no, that's the Floating Points. I think is the movement. It's preludes 1, 2, 3, and 4.
The third one,
yeah,
just it's crazy. I just set it on loop for one night and listened to the whole thing.
Yeah, over and over
maybe
again,
10, 15 times. It's incredible.
Yeah, so I've been wanting to shout out Ethan for that as well. So thanks for bringing our guest stuff into the.
Turns out he's still a genius.
And I said there was 2 things, and I forgot what the second one was. So we'll maybe come back to it.
I don't remember what the theme was.
All right, have a good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a theme tonight.
I have to say how good it is to see you here, man.
No, it must be great.
It's really good.
I can only imagine what it feels like.
It's really good.
I'll never know.
You don't photograph well. The screen doesn't do you any favors.
No,
when it adds 12 pounds or whatever, 10 pounds. No, it's just better.
The nose
You're better in 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
You also have a lot of color.
I've been told.
You look really tan.
I would like to exist in 3 dimensions.
Soon. If Zuckerberg gets his way. Look tan.
You look tan. You look good. I hope that's the
Anyone
case.
Butter, any thoughts on me?
I don't
Adding some doubt. You look good, but I'm not sure about it.
No compliments forthcoming right now.
I'll wait. Raise the noise. Yeah, it's been great. I mean, San Diego is awesome. Like, it really, being near a beach, I am not a water person. I've never liked being in the water. And so I guess because of that, I never liked going to beaches because water's right there. So
big part of the beach experience. Yeah,
I'm with that.
Big part, 50% at least. And, I was less than a minute away, and I'm like, I didn't consciously say like, I'm going to learn how to enjoy the beach. It was just, I wanted to learn how to skateboard, and there was a boardwalk with perfect pavement. So like, what better place to learn than weaving in between people? And so I had this route. It was like a 15-minute skateboard to the end of the park, beach, park, whatever. I guess it's
one and the same.
It was a beach park, actually. There was grass and like park.
Was it called Park Beach?
Should be. Mission Beach, actually.
That's a park.
Got to the end,
and a beach.
Had a little spot to read, and I talked about this last time, but last day, I had to take a call, and I had to start driving because my sister was leaving for her trip, so I didn't have much time in the morning to to pack and then go to the beach, but I spent 10 minutes, turned the meditation on, sat, looked at the waves, took in the beach like the last time I was there. And I was like, wow, this is really, really great.
Did you ever get to Salk?
No,
Institute?
So it's closed.
It's closed. Yeah. I looked it up, Rory.
Closed because of COVID?
Yeah.
Closed to public?
Yeah, it's closed to public visits, but they do like architectural tour visits.
Sick.
of the place, which we'll have to arrange.
Just-
when
Yeah, I'd
when
love
they
to
open
do
that
that.
up.
Do it.
We,
The website's actually pretty incredible for Salk Institute.
Nice.
I may have misspoke when I called it a school. It's really a research institute, but there's postdoc researchers there as well.
Nice.
So it's sort of a learning. I mean, you're always
Yeah.
learning when you're doing research, but
Yeah.
yeah.
right after the episode, I Googled it. I'm like, oh no, it's closed.
Yeah.
But Ross and I ended up going back to the Giselle library.
What is that?
That's actually Dr. Seuss's last name. They named a library after him on one of the campuses near where I was, and I posted photos of it on my story. It's like this beautiful.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
honeycomb,
Yeah.
concrete
That was that?
structure and glass. Yeah,
Gorgeous.
it was insane. But so I went the first time alone, and then Ross and I were driving somewhere. I'm like, oh shit, it's like right here. I'm like, yo, dude, could you make a quick turn over here? Like, didn't really tell him, and then we just showed up. He studied architecture, so I'm like, he's gonna love this. We pull in, get out, and he was just like floored. And I did the same thing where I'm like, what am I not seeing that
Yeah.
you're seeing right now?
Yeah.
And we were talking about concrete and how, like, literally he showed me how they built this entire building, which like it looked impossible, just the way it's structured, all this concrete and all different angles and grooves and all this stuff, and showed me like, yeah, this is where they, you could see the wood because they were molding it here, and this little cutout right here is where they probably propped something up. Things that I just walked right by and didn't really notice. I'm like, oh, wood texture on the concrete, cool. It's cool having a guide who loves that stuff.
That's something that Louis Kahn, who designed Salk Institute, something he was really into, concrete and seeing the scars of the process was very important to him. It said something about the character of concrete, what concrete wants to be, it sort of wants to be granite, but can't be, he's got this whole sort of way of thinking about concrete that's humanized. It's kind of interesting.
Part of that I keep thinking you were with us when we went to the library.
Not the
really
library, no. I
enjoyed
was
it.
at Balboa Park.
Right.
Well.
Also great.
Yeah.
So you could see the wood grain on the concrete, and it looks like it's kind of surreal because you see it like just like your table, like all the grooves and everything on the concrete, but there's no
between
wood.
the boards and stuff.
And then you see how it leaks through and everything.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool. It's
Having a hard time
It's like fossil
envisioning
almost.
that. Is it wood or do they imprint wood on it?
They imprint wood on it. Well, they actually don't do either. There's wood used to actually contain the concrete, and then when it hardens and they pull
It's the
off
mold.
the
sure.
wood,
It's the mold,
as
yeah.
the imprint.
We call
That
in
makes
Ireland
sense.
it's called shuttering. I don't know if they call it that here, like concrete shuttering. You build the boxes, put the rebar in, pour the concrete,
Yeah.
and then you take away.
Yeah.
But like the studio we're doing for Dan Romer, for a composer, there's one wall in the basement and in the ground floor that has this concrete with the wood sort of grain
impression
in it.
in it. Yeah.
And we sort of made it the feature of the whole studio.
Yeah.
We built it as the front wall because it's beautiful. It's sort of living.
Best of both worlds, like one of the best materials to build with, and one of the most beautiful materials to be around. Like
Yeah, it's super
wood
cool.
in the woods and
Yeah.
trees and all that.
I need to see a visual. I
Yeah.
don't know if I've ever seen anything like it.
I feel like there's
You've
maybe
seen
stuff
it. Yeah,
nearby,
you've seen
actually.
it. Yeah.
But
Cool.
the building is enormous and impressive, and the way, any building is going to interact with light in some way, but because of all these crevices and their use of mirrors on the windows, light is just all over the place, and there's like a big square structure that you're walking around. You can walk around under the entire building without being underneath it. And then there's an inner ring where you could walk underneath the building. When you look up, there's it's sort of like your ceiling where there's panels, but they did it with concrete. Sort of like geometric shapes, intentional. But
and what's the name of the library again?
Giselle, Giesel, maybe? Giesel. Apparently Dr. Seuss was from San Diego.
So, I wanted to come back to that. That's Dr. Seuss's last name.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Seuss is his first name. It's Seuss Guiel.
No. I think that's just a pseudonym.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I have no idea what
Yeah.
Dr. Seuss's real name
nom
is.
de
This is
plume.
blowing my mind right
yeah.
now that he has another name. Yeah.
He's got a real name, turns out. And he's not a doctor.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Guys.
My ankle's been hurting.
I'm actually okay sounding this dumb on this episode right now. Like I would have, I don't know.
All the listeners are like, really, dude?
I just had
Dr.
no
Seuss
idea.
wasn't a
Like,
cardiologist?
you know, who looked up Dr. Seuss besides him being an author of children's books?
Only the person who made that sign. They're
Right.
Like, oh,
It's
what's
weird
his name?
because
It's just
it
not one
ties
of-
into your live this morning, which is what Gerhard was saying about people sort of transcending, like being a human, and they become a kind of like Dr. Seuss. You don't think
A
of
symbol.
a dude who's doing dishes, who's Dr. Seuss, who's really called, Tom Brown.
Yeah.
Like he's sort of beyond human now.
Yeah.
And that's what Gerhard was talking about, I guess, and that's kind of how he is in our minds. He's not like he's not a guy who paid taxes, you know what I mean, or like had domestic disputes, you know.
There's a lot of controversy with Dr. Seuss recently, and I was kind of reading some of the articles and reading how he was responding to controversy. I'm not going to get into it, but I was like, oh man, there is a person behind the symbol that is Dr. Seuss, and then there's a bronze sculpture of him and the Cat in the Hat, who is not real. The Cat in the Hat, turns out, but he's huge. He's like 7 feet. Hat is probably 2 feet.
It's a big hat.
Was that
Huge hat.
That wasn't obvious sarcasm. What did you mean that he's not real?
The Cat in the Hat's not real. Turned out.
Okay.
Even though there is
It's not documentary.
Fictitious character.
he is fictitious.
Okay.
I
feel really dumb today and gullible for some reason. Like my vibe is all off today.
You fed us all espresso, and we're all on.
And champagne. I'm
Right.
like, I'm so gullible today.
But what I loved about the sculpture is it's actually it's an interesting design challenge. Like you're making a Dr. Seuss sculpture. Like what would you do, right? What would you make? And so Cat in the Hat, obvious symbol for Dr. Seuss. I guess his most famous, or maybe second next to.
So, yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
most.
Yeah, and then
The Cat in the Hat comes back.
there's another one.
Multiple levels.
Like you read it for kids during their graduation. Oh, the
The
places
Lorax?
we'll go.
Oh.
I think that's like one of the.
Oh yeah, not for me,
More
but yeah,
popular ones,
it would be the Lorax, and then the Grinch would be the
Yeah.
other biggies, you know.
So, big Cat in the Hat, and him sitting at his desk, and it's him drawing and crumpled up paper and the pens that he had and the desk, and it reminded me of the photograph of Kubrick of him like doing the work.
The practice, yeah.
There's something like kind of beautiful of representing the person as they're doing the work. There's a posture and there's like all these thoughts that you can't really tell what they are, but that are happening.
I was just thinking I'd love my tombstone to have me by an espresso machine. Just like pulling that last shot.
Not a
You and every barista.
No mixer, no
not with the Grace
console,
N905
no
remote,
Grace,
like,
no Mac, nothing. Just an
Diet of
espresso machine, just handing out my last shot.
just wooden spoon.
yeah.
AirPods on? AirPod Maxes?
No, not in the morning. Not in the morning.
La Crusade, just fucking stirring.
But there's another topic. You mentioned Gerhard, and his grandfather happened to be someone that had some degree of celebrity.
Jared, who are we talking about?
This is
here?
Gerhard Masters. His grandfather recently passed away, and he was like, I guess in the 70s, a like self-help guru, for lack of a better word, right?
Hypnotist, yeah.
It started as a hypnotist and then worked that into general self-help, had a radio show, was like in broadcasting for over a decade. Huge following and all of this. And
Do we know his name?
something Masters, I forget.
Okay.
We should definitely look that up and add it to show notes. So he recently passed away, and Gerhard and I were kind of talking about offline the dynamics of that relationship. And, you know, it was one of my first time, I would say the first time that like I spoke with someone who knew a celebrity, but like it was like literally one generation removed from them, and like having like he viewed him as a celebrity and this grandfather who was like a second father to him. I just thought it was very interesting. Like there's like two versions of the same person in many ways. You know,
It's like Ethan's experience with John Williams. You know, it's like he's just his granddad,
right?
And also the most famous movie composer ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Ever, you know.
You know, and seeing the cracks of someone that's giving self-help but is still human, you know, and was raising him, you know. So I don't know. That was just my thought. That's the whole thought. But check out the IG Live on my Instagram.
Yeah.
For more information. Like and subscribe. On YouTube, people are saying smash the subscribe button. And I'm like,
oof, no.
It's the worst terminology.
Smash, no. It's not fun.
What?
It's
no.
inelegant.
Yeah.
Completely.
Way to speech.
Yeah.
It is definitely not dressed for dinner.
It's like, meanwhile, it's like, you're just clicking a mouse like, and
Oh
like,
my God.
smash it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's presumptuous about your level of excitement.
Yeah.
I'm on board, but I'm not that, like, I'm not smashing anything for it. Like,
No.
you know, I'll subscribe.
I'll smash a button for me, but not for you.
Scratch the give me an espresso button, smash that one, but not that button, not the
Not the
subscribe
YouTube
button.
subscribe button.
I've never subscribed to a YouTube channel in my life.
Never?
Yeah, same.
Never.
I'll smash some
not a
champagne on a new boat. Or something.
I still get
There you
ads.
go.
I don't have that.
I avoid logging in on Google at all fucking costs.
You
And,
subscribe, right, Spider?
I might smash some potatoes or an avocado rather. Smashed avocado.
that's a good time.
I could see that on a.
I had a grilled avocado in Santa Barbara this weekend, and in the center is a black garlic yuzu. Just this like kind of aged balsamic-y version of it.
Oh,
It's
wow.
like all
No creme
glazed.
fraiche?
No,
Nothing,
no, no.
nothing? Like, whoa,
Dude,
wow.
unreal dish.
No
This-
smoked paprika. Nothing.
There might have been something in there. It's just a magical dish, but anyway.
Just magic.
Sounds delicious.
Celebrated my manager Nathaniel's wife's birthday, Karen, and fired their whole menu, which was fun. I've never done that before. Where you just tell the server fire the whole menu and just see what comes out, like, and everyone's just surprised.
What is this phrase? This is like smash the like button.
Fire the menu is definitely not like smash
They're
the button.
But what is
Parallel.
I've never heard this phrase.
Fire the menu.
Fire the menu.
Yeah,
like and subscribe, fire the menu, smash the like button.
Yeah.
Or subscribe
never
button.
heard the phrase.
Fire's like chef talk for like
Fire.
yeah, like have you fired the steak yet? We're full. Like if you haven't fired it yet, like let's pull it off. We don't want that. We're full. Just make sure.
This is all new language to me.
Yeah.
So what you're saying to the chef is send us one of everything whenever it's ready.
Yeah.
At your discretion.
Yes.
So it's kind of a tasting menu with
their entire menu, which I've never done before, and it was a lot of fun. And then the servers come out. Sometimes the chef will bring it out with whatever the whatever the protocol is, and then describing everything with such nuance. And as maybe the 20th dish came out, you just can't remember what's being said because you're just so full. But anyway, it was an experience I've never had. And for those of you that know me at all, eating food is probably my favorite thing to do. So letting that occur was the peak moment in my life.
Nice. Peak belly.
I think for everybody at the table, I think it was like an exciting kind of occurrence, and got a lot of love out of that.
And it's a big deal for the chef that someone is giving them that permission to go there.
That interested, that curious.
And four people at the table were able to eat almost everything but the last few bites of like the 20th dish or whatever it was. It was pretty exceptional. I always I always want to shout out Barbareño in Santa Barbara. It's such an underrated, or maybe an unknown restaurant on the West Coast that's only an hour and 25 minutes away from Los Angeles. And just, if people want to get a weekend away, just go support them. It's just small, just unreal food. It's hard to describe what they do up there. Just going to give them some love on this episode for a minute, because it's just profound experiences each and every time you go there.
Killer.
Should we jump into our theme of the day?
I think we should.
I think we should. Kind of exciting.
We've never done this before.
We have not.
This is the first time.
Not with the audio recordings. We did ask for some feedback before, some questions or thoughts, but it felt appropriate this week.
Yeah, because because writing these sort of open questions is one, good questions are really hard to come up with. And since we have a practice of developing them, we thought it would be more interesting to interact with where people are at, like what people are thinking about, what they're contemplating, what they're even maybe struggling with, and sort of like bring that input into the conversation and run these topics around the table rather than your typical AMA where you just got a list of questions to answer. The typical Ask Me Anything. It's a little bit more like a what's on your mind. But I think the AMA framework works because, you know, that's an opportunity for listeners, subscribers, community, or whatever to engage with us more directly. And so I think it sends the right signal.
It's dipping
even though it's a little bit of a different format.
Yeah, and dipping our toe back in the water of being more connected to the community with, you know, leading to events.
Which was always the intention
completely
from the beginning.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
It's essential.
Yeah, I just wanted to add another point to that, which is, well, one, it's our first time doing it, but I think our personal value that we're getting from it is like realizing we've been doing this format for a long time, 38 episodes. This is the 38th?
38,
Yeah, I think so.
And, you know, there's always room for improvement, always room for us to kind of push what we're doing. And I think Rory cued into like, you know, we need this, you know, interpersonally and, you know, dynamically. We just need a change. And what better thing to do than engage the community? But, you know, to some degree of selfishness and for our own self-preservation and happiness.
A band needs an audience.
Yeah.
And they don't just need an audience, they need feedback from the audience. We like this song. We're not feeling that intro. Like you need that sort of, that's why they say a gig is worth 10 rehearsals or whatever. You know what I mean? It really is when you play music, you learn so much more by having an audience.
Definitely. I mean, it's why I love these IG lives. I mean, I was kind of cueing into the other part is that like I've been away, I'm going to be away more, you know, it's most of the time we get together, it's just like admin calls and whatnot. And, you know, there's a degree in which we want to inject new energy into our group and what
Very
we
much.
do, because it's like writing a new record, you know, you can only play the same record so long. So, I wrote Coming Up for Air because I spoke to Ross about that the other day. He actually, I'm really happy to say that he got a job with IBM.
Oh, amazing.
So he's stepping into a pretty big organization, and he had the interviews while I was in town. So I was helping him put together a presentation and practice for the interview. And like, we're like 4 hours in, it's like, we're just saying nonsense at this point. And it was like, time to come up for air, and we just like went outside. I was like, yeah, let's go outside for a sec. Sat, like, he has this hammock thing, we just sat on it for like 10 minutes, and then you get back and you're in a totally different state, you know? And this idea of just coming up for air in the practice, whether it's switching up, you know, what we're doing, or, you know, you're working deep on something and you need to step outside or try another project, or for creators, like Gerhard Masters was saying today, like, sometimes you just shelf things, not to leave them, but to like let them sit and be whatever state they're in, work on another thing to come back to it.
Coming up for
sort
air,
of the same kind of grouping of things.
Yeah,
same
it's not
intention.
a synonym for checking your phone. That's not coming up for air. That's a different thing. Useful, practical if you got a business to run, but not coming up for air.
Yes.
These are different things.
Thank you for that.
Great distinction.
Yeah.
Or nuance there. Yeah, so anyway, on Art Club, we were talking about value and this idea of our personal values, the things that we spend our personal currency on, which is our life. What do we value there? And then in work, what does the client actually value from the thing you're doing? What value do they get from it outside of just like a logo? Like, what are all the things attached? And then for you personally, what are all the things attached? And I mean, we definitely value the people that listen, that write in, that like talk. I mean, I do a lot, and I know everyone does.
I feel like I am the people that listen.
Yeah.
Like I don't I feel like very much that we are a part of something bigger, and we're just sitting in front of microphones. It's not us and them. We're all very much working together toward a thing. Not all of us know what we're working toward. I certainly don't know exactly, but I think that's part of this project, you know. And I hope that we can have more of this engagement in the podcast and in other ways. However that takes shape over time, but this interaction with the people that we serve, the people we work with, the people that we share so much common ground with, I think is a kind of essential thing that I know we've all been pushing for in these meetings every week, in one way or another, and I'm glad we're going to get into it. So,
without further ado,
yeah, I think we should. So how's this going to work, Michael?
I'm just going to open up the email in chronological order and play the clip, and then we could discuss it.
So people have left voice notes and emailed them to us.
Right. For those not following the Instagram account and haven't seen the message we put out, basically we asked everyone that follows us to send us an email at info@convos.at. And send a voice memo with whatever's on your mind. If you have questions, comments, kind of ideas that you're formulating that you want us to riff off of, send it in. And so we got 7 emails, one of which is not an audio recording. Totally fine. I'll read it. But yeah, I'm just going to go through each one and we'll dive in.
Cool.
Down.
Let's riff. So the first one is from Anthony Puglisi. Just sent it over because they had audio in the background in the first one. And so this is a re-recorded version so that we don't get sued.
Take 2 without the music. I've been thinking about you guys and the community you guys have been building over the past year, and coming out of a post-pandemic, post-vaccine world, and thinking about my desire to actually engage with human beings. Wondering when you guys see the next in-person conversation, and I'm curious how the community you guys have been building virtually translates to reality, and to me that's exciting. And I've been thinking about Steely Dan and Al Schmidt because of this beautiful weather we're having here in Los Angeles. Hope you guys are well. Talk to you soon.
That's great.
I'm gonna take this one because I was gonna bring it up today too. So I'm glad that the community is interested. Thanks, Anthony. Man, I don't know. It's so weird because just the idea of connecting with humans post all of this is so confusing at the moment. Anyway, we had a little engagement party here last night with 10 people, and that felt, vaccinated humans, and it still felt like, whoa, we have 10 people upstairs in the gift shop. We used to have upwards of 50 people at these events. So I've been a little skittish on the idea of even wondering if we're going to do it this year. And I was going to propose to the group tonight about, when is Michael coming back from this trip? And do we have a welcome back Michael gathering? Is it 25 people? Is it 20? Is it 50 again? And everyone has to show their vaccine or something. Like, what does that look like in my home? Or do we do it somewhere else?
Elsewhere, yeah.
But I would love the first one to be here because everyone's listening, and most of the people know. Like I just did the first studio tour on Live with Matt Rad, which is like kind of a hit. I didn't realize that I've never done that before. And I walked around and I showed, and it's just like, oh man, it's like, you see little pictures on Instagram and like I want to come up there, and it would be nice to do a live roundtable where we do like a social gathering, but also do a live version of it where we chat. And I'd like to do it. I don't know the limitations on the amount and how that would work, but we should absolutely do an event this year.
Yeah,
without a doubt. I mean, we have the lowest rates in the world in California of COVID. Like, we're moving in the right direction based on safety protocols and parameters that we decide we should do this for sure.
My take right now at this moment is there are some people, you know, for whom as soon as one dude had a vaccine in his arm, it's like, fucking let's go. And other people are like, the sky is falling forever. We're all going to die.
Yeah.
I'm in a wait and see mode. It's like, I'm sort of carefully easing back into the world, but I want to see what these variants do. I want to see, do I need a booster shot in the winter?
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
So that, the pragmatic approach to the virus and to wearing masks and to getting in the room with people, but in terms of like the desire to do something with humans in our community, it couldn't be stronger.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's so as soon as it's practical and safe and people feel good about it, then we'll absolutely do it.
And I just imagine it being a smaller affair than what it was at the beginning and what the intention was, but hopefully to some degree that could occur. Yeah,
I think the only other thing I'd say is, you know, there's a challenge that, you know, in varying ways people have risen to during the pandemic of connecting, you know, asynchronously and at distance. And I think it's a challenge to us. It's like, say we can get 20 people together before the end of this year, or 30 people or 50 people. There's more than that in our community. And there's, you know, I was talking with Edsel last night, and there's people in Nashville, and there's people on the East Coast, and there's people in Stockholm, you know. So being a little bit inventive in terms of how we involve people in something that isn't just us talking and them being on a screen looking at us, and, you know, coming up with some format that is of the moment. And I think we're up to that.
It looks like a landscape of possibilities to me.
Yeah.
I think gathering for social reasons is a fundamental thing we should do. But there are different ways to get together and different reasons. You know, we can learn together, we can be inspired together, we can eat together, we can just sort of go through the calendar year together. And I think like the work that I'm undertaking at the moment is understanding, developing a vision for how to organize in a way that is going to be meaningful, that is going to help us meet basic unmet human needs, and inspire all of our individual growth, and so that we become better influences on next generation.
Yeah.
You know, and so taking that multi-generational view, understanding the bones and the DNA of community, what makes it work, not in the superficial affiliation sense, but in a real, at the level of mutual investment where our well-being is tied together. You know, churches emerged, you know, say in the, you know, the last, say 100 years in the West, Christian churches, you know, I only can look at that because that's my experience, what I was born into, but there was so much about these local communities that seemed to correlate with better outcomes. You know, like whatever measures we have of well-being and happiness and life satisfaction and that sort of thing seem to be improved by a coming together in a real world way, a kind of being a part of an organization that's bigger than your household, a network of households that produce a kind of resiliency that no one household can have on its own. So I don't know what this means for us, but this is where my head's at and what I'm thinking about. And I think there's a hunger for this apparent in the conversations, events that occurred up here and in the listenership now, and in my conversations day to day. Like, it's something I know everybody's missing, and I know it's something everybody's hungry for. It's just a matter of what shape will it take.
Yeah.
I remember,
and what are the layers?
Yeah, I just remember night one, at the end of it, countless numbers of humans were like, well, you can't not do this again. You know, because Michael and I just tried it. We're like, oh, let's just do it. Let's see what happens. And it's like, oh, wow, people are starving for this in audio community because there is no engineer community in LA. Nobody knows each other. We just see our names on credits sometimes. Like, that doesn't actually exist. I don't know the dude or the girl that recorded the vocal on this thing. And then I did when they were up here. It's like, oh, wow, we're just eating food together and we're breaking bread together around a table. It's like, that's how people come together from all walks of life. And it's kind of the most beautiful thing that I know how to participate in and give back with. So
tagging on that and Spider's point, I think the thing I'm proudest of with the podcast, the thing that sort of makes me the happiest is watching different people in the community connect directly. People from different parts of the country who only how they came to know each other was because they're in our community, and then they're connecting directly and talking about having 2 and 3 hour conversations with each other. And it's like, that just makes that's a big deal to me.
Oh my God. And this is so super self-congratulatory to what we're talking about. But yesterday on Live with Matt Rad, this dude, I don't want to get his handle wrong, so I'm just not going to say it.
Wave.
Yeah.
What's
Wavy.Maine or something. Dude was
Wavy.
He was like thinking about quitting making music that day. First time ever seeing an audio engineer live, anything in the community of audio engineers. Like, well, I'm not going to quit now that this exists. First time he's ever done an Instagram live was that thing. And then in the same thread, it's all the regulars like talking to each other with arrows up and pointing at like who's there. And we had like over 60 people this time. And I was like, oh, that's the most we've ever had. At one point it hit like 67. And I was like, damn, that's cool. Like, I mean, that's some small numbers compared to like a Joe Rogan or like, the whatever, like but it was just like, man, that number just held. People coming in, pointing at each other, giving pounds to each other on the internet. This just blows my mind. I mean, Michael's been all about this for so long. I still don't understand it because, they keep asking me to get on the Discord. And my response is always, not another reason to look at my phone. Not another reason to look at the internet. Like, I don't really want to, I don't feel a calling to do that. Yeah. But at the same time, there's so much value on the internet. And I feel an obligation to do it to some degree. But I was kind of unaware of the power that could be until I read that message. Like, and we've had Eduardo say similar things. Like, I've thought about it, but dude was like, I was going to do that today. Like, I was about to make a decision. I don't know if you listened to the podcast I sent today, the Knowledge Project conversation. The last 15, 20 minutes is about decision making and like what it means to decide what kind of care you're going to do for prostate cancer, and it's someone that like for a living has made like very, very, large decisions professionally. It's like what it means to dissect decision making. Like that person was in his head going through the decision to quit making art and then heard Matt and I being doofuses, like whatever we were talking about at the moment, I was probably making a joke. I mean, we were talking about friendships and relationships and the different types of friendships that can be built through work and through art. Transactional. It's like, oh, okay. That lit a fire under my ass a little bit to take this even more seriously than 38 episodes might show and 52 with Matt. I think we'd hit like or 51 or something. It's like, but a lot of face on the internet, man. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really finally getting a little bit more comfortable with the idea, but this fucking face on the internet thing is weird.
I think like a full spectrum overview of what a thriving community looks like. To Anthony's, question. Obviously, there's a professional sort of civic organization kind of level, like a guild or whatever. But there's also a deeper level. And I'm wondering where that level is, because I know like a lot of people moved here away from family, so they don't have family here immediately. There's like a lot of need in our community for togetherness and everything that means. So opportunities to play together, to cycle together, to play tennis and hike and to learn and so I think there's a lot we can do
in a post-COVID world.
And as we transition,
right now,
I hope we try some of it. I think like we intend to be trying some of these things out and hopefully I think we're trying to make time soon to get a big chunk of time to work some of this stuff out, beyond like the kind of weekly runnings of the podcast.
The practicalities, which takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
New rule, you get to play the clip, but you don't get to not answer. So next one you answer first.
I'm going to answer right now.
Okay.
I was going to say, I think it's his turn now. I mean,
don't. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, like, we only know so much about what's happening right now. We learn from the same sources that you learn and everyone else, relatively the same. So any development on rules, protocols, all of that stuff, like, we're figuring it out as fast as we can. But, it's the podcast is obviously much safer. It's the four of us. We know who we've seen. We know what we've done. With an event, that level of risk and the responsibility is just way, way higher. And to think that, someone's relative could pass away because of an event we had, it raises stakes beyond imagination. And I just think, we want to do it. I think that's clear. That's, you guys have covered that part. And the only reason we're not is because the stakes are incredibly high and we don't have any control over it.
And there's a tension because the stakes are high from not doing it.
Exactly.
So there's that tension. And I think, I mean, is there anything stopping us from having outdoor barbecue?
Outdoor taco truck.
Yeah.
That kind of framework.
I think as we transition, we can do things for sure.
Well, the other part
just quickly on your note, there's a risk, but for events, there are CDC protocols.
Yes, exactly.
We'd actually have to follow, probably can only be 90 minutes and how many households, and there's legalities that we actually probably don't even understand on how to do. At least indoor and outdoor, probably similar.
Some kind of chute that you can send people who cough down. If someone coughs, you just
we have windows. Yeah. I mean, but in the meantime, I think that's also an important discussion of what do you do in the meantime? Because I personally believe that the meantime is going to be a long time. And I've kind of held on to that belief since this whole thing started. Was like, people are like, like a few more months. And I'm like, I'm thinking like 5 years. And they're like, that's crazy. Like maybe like 1 year. And I'm like, I'm going to reserve my guess and say 5. And then this way, if it's 4.5, I'm going to be like, amazing.
You're prepared.
Got a free half year, And it reminds me of something on the Jim Collins podcast. He was talking about like the optimists and how like they're the ones that are, I forgot what the context was. Like they're the ones that were like hurt the most or something like that. And it was because like it was sort of what we were talking about, silver lining versus silver lying. You got to listen. It covers a lot of ground. And but he was talking about how like, and I'm taking this out of context because I can't remember exactly, but basically how it was the optimists that believe like, oh, everything's going to be fine, when it wasn't, that were always hurt the most, that didn't survive. It was like prison or something. So prison, the people that were like, we're going to get out. They were it
was military.
They were prisoners of war. And they were saying,
yes, exactly.
It was the ones that were saying, another like 3 months and we'll be out, and held on to that, versus the people that were like, we may never get out of here. That those were the ones that got out, and the other ones were let down every 3 months, that they kept saying 3 months. So I think that's an important thing, and why he covered it in the episode is because it was recorded recently. To have that point of view isn't actually pessimistic in the long run.
The optimists were the most traumatized.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wait, are you coming around to my point of view? This sounds like you're making a lot of sense here, and I'm like, wait a second.
You have Jim Collins to thank for that.
But hold on. I don't know. I don't remember if he touched on this, but you can easily see that there's a sense of optimism in a more pragmatic, rational view of the outcome.
If you zoom out.
If you zoom out, it's a time-based context that we're talking about.
Right.
It's like
they didn't say we'll never get out. They said we may never.
Yeah.
But
there's a kind of a fatalism where it's in God's hands. That kind of framework,
acceptance,
is proven,
rather than trying to control it,
right? Like, or having a sense of control. Like 3 months, I said it, so it's going to be 3 months. Like, what happens if it?
I think
doesn't?
key part of like American trauma is this idea that we can't control everything.
You can will things into
and you know, the world is a better place for American will, but there's a lot of suffering too because of people who have been deluded. You know.
Yeah. So I think that's just the core point for me is that if we could will it into existence, we absolutely would. We'd have 700 people if we could fit it. Like you know, that's not the issue. The issue is really the safety of everyone that would join and everyone that they would see after.
Yeah, it's a leadership piece. But the desire is there, and in the meantime, I think we don't. You know, we gotta put ourselves on the hook to come up with inventive ways to connect.
And this is one of them. You know, and then I was thinking, you know, for not just for us and what the podcast group could do for the community, but also, like you were saying, people that are syncing up offline or they're FaceTiming each other. Like I met Jared Masters during all of this. He was a listener of the show. He called me, or he like we were DMing a bunch, and I was like, dude, just call me. I was on my road trip. I was like, I got like 6 hours. Let's talk. It was like 3 hours later. I'm like, I feel like I've known this dude forever, you know? And so friendships can emerge out of this, and I'm seeing it happen firsthand and secondhand. I definitely encourage that. Like I think that forced isolation for public safety is different than social isolation because that's not being enforced. Like they're not saying don't interact with people or don't have 3-hour phone calls. They're not the same as being in person. We know that from a biological level, a psychological level, but do the most, you know, that you can do in this situation. If we can't get around to setting up an event or something, just really find a way to
remember when we even needed a word for that, and they started saying instead of socially distance, physically distance, because socially distance was damaging.
Yeah, it's
like poor choice of terminology. It's interesting.
Speaking of the community, I just want to shout out Anthony because he's one of the people that we met in the last year, and we just had so much fun working with him. We did Unfuck projects on his room and had some great conversations and interactions and shared music and shared food and everything about it was a pleasure. So just one note on the network that we're super happy to have.
Yeah.
It is cool meeting people on the internet in a anonymous way. You know, people that are opening themselves up to us and vice versa. I really do consider Gerhard like a close friend of mine, someone that I want to develop a long-term relationship with. And that all came from just hours of talking throughout this whole crazy year.
Back to Spider's point, people need it. We need it.
Yeah.
We're
definitely need it.
Not so hairy apes, and we need help.
Me, not so much.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
Well, let's do another.
Yeah.
Our next email comes from someone, I never heard of this guy before. His name is Eduardo.
Hello, guys. This is Eduardo from Mexico City. First of all, I want to start saying thanks one more time for all the things you have done and you have shared, for talking about real stuff, about audio, music, and life. It's been super helpful. It's been a light on my path, and I'm sure it's been the same way for all of us. So thank you, really thank you for that. It truly means a lot. And one thing that it's been on my mind lately, it's how to create a routine, create new habits, but without feeling like you are trapped in a loop or you are repeating yourself day after day, like creating a routine that feels dynamic, but at the same time that it's enhancing your practice, your process, and doing the repetition that needs to be done. And for this, I try to relate it with this idea, with this concept that it's been fascinating me for a while now. That is the concept or the idea of two realities. One being the reality that it's always there and it's gonna be always there, that it's bigger than anything. That reality for me is nature, and the other one, the reality society has created. And the thing about this is, like, I would love to create a routine or a living way with the perfect balance of these two, like having the best of the both worlds. Because the reality that it's always there, like nature, might sound or look really simple, but to me it's really complex, because the way I see it is like to going with the flow on that reality is surviving. So you have to be really aware of the moment. You have to stay present and really be focused on the things you are doing on the present. On the other hand, with the society or the reality we have created as a society, I feel that reality has more things like aspirational, and you might worry about the future, and it's easy to get lost of your focus when you are so worried about things that you maybe cannot control. But at the same time, you have to do the minimal to be part of the society. You have to be part of that reality, because nobody can live on their own. And that's the thing. So I've been trying to figure it out. I'm still working on it. I think I'm getting good thoughts about it, and yeah, I don't know. Thanks for listen to me, and thanks for this spot to bring the community involved into the conversation, and much love, guys. Thanks.
Okay.
This guy.
Said I have to go first?
Yeah. No, I don't mind. The noise is great. I love the noise.
Yeah.
I had a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm shocked.
I kind of want to clarify the two realities a little bit. I don't know how you took it, guys, but it sounds like he's talking about a kind of physics, an underlying base, when we have high levels of prediction, like gravity. If I drop this, if I drop my phone, if I let go of my phone, it's going to drop to the floor pretty much 100% of the time, right? That's like a high probability claim. And then there's all the stuff like that we don't know yet, right? Just the way things work, the way the brain works, and the social reality being more like the level of stories and the topics that are on everybody's mind, and the kind of social reality. He says societal, but if you're looking immediately, like I'm not sure exactly where the tension is between the way things work and the way and what people believe. If maybe Eduardo is living in a place where he has different beliefs to the people he's around, or I kind of like wanted to I don't know. What do you guys read it a different way, or am I off? Or
a little bit, but go, Michael, on the on whatever order, and then I'll.
Yeah, I was writing with my right hand this time while holding with my left, but I usually write with my left. So if you saw me awkwardly scribbling on the iPad. So Eduardo mentioned, also, hi, Eduardo. Miss you, and hope to see you very soon. You talked about routine first. That was sort of the introduction to the rest of what you were talking about. And the first question is just like, what are you trying to achieve by having this routine? Because a lot of people see people that have degrees of success and say they have a routine, I want a routine, or they have a shirt, I want that same shirt, and that, you know, might accomplish something. And then there's other reasons why the routine might be there. So you obviously didn't include why you want the routine, and I would encourage, if you haven't thought too much about that, dig into the why behind that, you know, the 5 whys as a means of kind of problem solving and getting to the core of a solution or question. So why routine? And then the other part felt kind of separate, but also not. And I see where you're going with it, which is like, you mentioned 2 realities, and I kind of feel like there's 3 and probably more, but the one that Spider mentioned, which is like the physics of our reality, right? Like almost very certain calculated things that are like arguably like always true. And then there's nature, which is something in between. Like you can kind of predict how nature flows and how wind will go and trees might grow over certain things, but there's still a degree of unpredictability.
Yeah, we don't have a complete handle on it.
Right.
But there is a way that it's working.
Yeah, there's a way that it's working without us kind of knowing. And then there's this societal one, which is more, there is less ability to predict because we have even less information about it. It's easier to study a tree. It's not going anywhere. You know, it doesn't have trauma in an emotional sense, but it might have physical trauma that you could see, right? So sort of like these degrees of certainty. And when I'm thinking about routine and certainty, like there is a connection there, which is like certainty in the societal reality. How do we get more certainty out of that reality? And you mentioned openness of nature. And I like to think of it as sort of this long open loop, right? Over time, nature will just kind of ebb and flow, however that may be. And society being a more feedback-based loop. So you're making decisions, you're getting feedback. This is sort of creating loops in which you change and grow. And a routine is sort of like another mechanism that can either be an open loop or a feedback loop. It can be an open loop if you just do a routine, like you said, you get bored. How does it become boring? Well, if it's open and it's not producing any results, it will get boring and kind of lose its function. Building a loop that has an output that might actually always change or be a little bit more dynamic, the output itself creates a good feedback loop. You want to learn something, you learn that thing, you apply it, you get feedback from society, from the societal reality that it works, and you keep repeating. So
what if having a chaotic day-to-day lifestyle obscures the fact that the work you're doing is boring, and initiating the routine reveals it?
So a resistance to even making routine, right?
Well, it could be.
Yeah.
Again, just in pure incentive structure.
So a question to ask might be, why have you not made a routine already?
What's the source of the boredom?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
right? Is it just repeating something, or is it repeating what you're currently
what is it
in?
you're repeating?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think routine should yield a positive result. If you're working out and you're seeing gains, as they call it, you know, that's a positive feedback loop. It wouldn't get boring per se, because you could always try different things. As you get stronger, you can lift more weights or try different sports. Like, so it wouldn't get boring. So that's a good point. Those are my thoughts on it.
What you got, John?
Still working it out. You got.
I mean, you've been, you know, if we take Eduardo's question without the sort of nature versus society element for a second, of just the first question he asked, which is routine.
It was a how.
Yeah, the obvious benefits of, and then the way that it makes you feel constrained. So as someone who has, you know, pulled at the yoke of routine and sort of resisted quite a lot in my life, I know what he's talking about. And you've described, you know, I've said here on mic that one of the reasons I wanted to lean into the stuff about you like that was to learn from it. And you've said, hey, this has really served me, but also I don't feel as free like I'm successful.
Yeah.
But like, where's my prize? Where's my freedom? Where's my playfulness? Right? I'm paraphrasing.
No, I was going to bring this exact thing up that you brought up.
So you've been, you're someone who has very much reaped the rewards of order and discipline and routine and practice and but also felt the price.
I'm on a different side of it now.
Yeah. You're on a different side of that particular...
Yeah. Just like you are at a different side of understanding your place in certain aspects of work. I'm on the other side of freedom and understanding freedom and where the routine can be broken or more flexible, I should rather say.
Yeah, dynamic. I like that, what Eduardo...
Yeah, that's
the way
that.
He put it.
When he was taught, when I was listening to the clip, that's what's coming to mind is like the flexibility, for example, the meditation, right? So that's like key. It's 720 days in a row. I'm trying to do a year's worth, 730 days in a row, and then I'm going to stop doing it every day on the app, on the Waking Up app. I want to just, for some reason, I'm a reward seeking human, like Michael's bringing up. I want to see an outcome. So the outcome to me is I want to do 2 years straight every day and be less precious about the number and see if I'm doing it for the right reasons. Because for me right now, I'm doing it for the number as well as the right reasons. And I want to strip away the reward. I want to strip away the trophy. And I'm going to just see it to a number. So I about a month and a half ago, I put this goal out there. I was like, I'm going to do that. But I didn't meditate in the morning for like 4 days in a row, which is my routine, is espresso, then meditate, or meditate, then espresso, or whatever. This, whatever works for you as a human. So the answer to the how is find something that you can replicate for an extended period of time. We can get into the boredom part of it or the dynamic part of it, but a routine is something that you can, make a habit easily. There should be low friction. If it's working out, do 20 minutes. Do 10. Just get the heart rate up and then try to increase, right? So the flexibility came, I just meditated before bed. Like, as long as I did it, I didn't hate myself. I just, okay, I'm going to do the meditation. If I didn't, I even thought to myself, it's not that big of a deal because I have such a habit built that I'm not going to lose the habit, right? So there's this pragmatic approach to let the chaos throughout the day and the disorder throughout the day exist because the way I look at it is I did something for myself. As long as I do something for myself, then I can do things for others, and that can be chaos. Like today was utter chaos, and I loved it. I didn't get stressed from it, but I had my morning, and I will have this evening, right? So there's these brackets around the chaos that I can hold myself accountable to reproduce at some point. I don't think they have to be on the exact time that you think. I would imagine that you'd have to do that to some degree to build up the muscle memory or the intellectual bandwidth to have that as a reliable structure to replicate. But I don't know the science behind that and habit building. I'm sure there's some sort of diet data that shows like after 60 days it becomes more of like a lifestyle habit thing, or I'm sure there's some data out there for that. But the minute you see it as a means to the creative process or the means to the chaotic or the magical or the irrational, it's just like
or
letting
peace of mind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How do you mean?
Like
I'm not following that because the peace of
reducing
mind,
reducing chaos. So
right, but for that moment, I'm saying something specific where if he's talking about boredom, right? If we're coming at it where if you have a routine, it could become boring. If you have a routine that leaves space for chaos, magic, irrational, whatever other people play, exactly. What other people play a role in your life, that the external stimulations that are not completely internal, they become less daunting. You become less afraid of those things because you can retreat back to these things.
What if we flip, like he's saying, feeling trapped? What if we flip it and say locked out of? So instead of trapped inside, you're locked out of something else. Like what's the other thing? If you're stuck inside, what's the other thing where you'd rather be? just being willy-nilly every day.
Yeah,
that's not how Eduardo's thinking, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what's on the other side then? I'm assuming boredom when he says feeling trapped by the routine. I'm assuming boredom. But maybe there's a different...
early on.
He was saying, like, how do you create a routine without it feeling boring after a while?
Yes. Dynamics.
Yeah.
I'm trying to come at it, but coming from Rory's perspective and bringing it to me for someone who has such a long-standing routine that's working. Like today, I mean, Graham could attest to this, like crazy flow of mixing today because I had to get something done in the day. It was calls and physical therapy and getting my car washed for 2 weeks, like in and out of the place on calls and just so much, which is not normally in my life. The work part I only worked for 2 hours and it was like hardcore. And I mixed the entire song and I brought it to my car. It's one of my favorite I've done in a while, like just completely flowing. But that's because that's what that time was designed for. The time was, okay, I carved it out. I did my routine. I let the chaos occur, but you can't do that if you're not managing your time well.
You've trained the grooves over all these years of being in a routine. So it's like you sit down, there's an automatic thing.
But bringing it back to the routine, I'm trying to come at it as the importance of, and if it gets boring, let it get boring. I find more value, and I think it's like another on this podcast, Jim Collins is his name. Like what's your opening bid? Are you going to trust, or are you a distruster? Like where do you come? And like data shows that being a more open, maybe you're 75% full on your trust battery is the analogy that's used, versus 5%. There's more upside to the letdowns that'll occur from being hurt by someone who misused your trust than it is to have to build that trust up and then have it happen. It's just like it's similar to the prisoner of war concept too with optimism. My opening bid is to challenge boredom in routine, that there's more value from having it. So when it breaks, there's a lot more headroom because you've built up this kind of battery, this storage from it. I don't know. Again, there's probably better science on it than my anecdotal information.
I'm curious if like during these routines you saw like there was some form of feedback. I mean, there had to be something.
Well, yeah. So thinking about the mental health, think about the mindfulness, think about meditation. Well, when a stressful episode approaches, whether it's a client or a relationship, you can understand where it's coming from, and so there's actual practice and mechanism that switches on and off. Right, you can see it. It's like a real, or you can feel it, whether you see it or not. You could be blind, and I'm sure you can still feel these things. The quickness of the 2-hour work bout today was like the most efficient I've had. And the other day I spent 8 hours mixing and I got less done than I did today. Right. Like I felt that today. And that comes from the practice. I mean, there's a lot is what I'm trying to say. I can talk for hours about the benefits of the routine.
It sounds like Eduardo's convinced of the benefits, you know, that's why I think why he's asking. It's like but
he's not convinced on the how. That's the question.
Yeah. The value he seems convinced on, and he seems committed. How do you form a routine? Well, one, through experimentation. One, like I have a calendar, and one of my calendars is called Routine, and then I have another one called Routine COVID. And so every, 6 months or so, I create a kind of routine calendar where I look at all my needs. What do I have to get done every week, every day, every week, every month, and actually make time for it in the calendar. So it's like, I'm going to wake up, go to sleep at this time, wake up at this time. What am I doing when I wake up? You know, it's sort of in 15-minute chunks. I used to have this app that would let me do 5-minute chunks. I got really granular about all the little things. But really, you have to take care of the things you need. So that's the first place to start, I think, is getting in the calendar time for all the things you need. Like in my calendar, dinner's at 6 every day, right? The regularity of it, one, again, this is more to the value, which Eduardo seems to already be on, but I think it's useful to visualize. When you look down the road, there are lines on the road, and it gives you, like, makes order out of the chaos. And that's how I look at the calendar and like, and routine. It's like, and also shared routine among other people. It's like, oh, now we have lines on the road. We can stay in our lane. Like the car can drive itself because of those lines. And it creates a sort of peace of mind. It's like, you know what's coming. You know, it's not just an abyss of possibility. There's shape to it. You can see it. You can respond dynamically to ways in which it's challenged. Like an unforeseen thing comes up, like, we got to do this thing by the end of the week. It's like, well, here's a framework that I can work with, and I can carve things out, and I can make decisions. I can prioritize things in the calendar and whatever. I'm kind of using routine and calendar synonymously in this way. And I think it's useful to do that. Like, I don't actually look at this calendar every day, but it's sort of there. It's like the white color, you know, in the calendar app in Apple, and I just can turn it on and just look at the sort of framework, and then switch it off if I need to. But it accounts for everything. That non-negotiable sleep window at night, you know, the, you know, walking in the morning, the thing, you know, coffee, the whole deal. Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm always down to negotiate with the sleep window. I'm always like, we can work this out. You know, I'm conscious that we have, how many more voicemails do we have? Or memos? 4 more?
We should probably jump.
5 more. Okay, so we should jump. I just want to acknowledge the second part of Eduardo's question, which was super interesting and deep. And you'll all be shocked to know that it interested me more than a conversation about practice or about, you know, order. But I think Eduardo was sort of discussing the sort of exploring rather the contrast between the natural world and the sort of blissful isolation you can experience in nature, the sense of being truly present and as he said, the necessity to be present, because if you spend any extended time in nature, you've got to have your wits about you or you'll die. Yeah. You know, if you don't catch that fish or, you know, find that piece of fruit, it's over. So there's a sort of an existential level of being present, right? And that nature as a way of connecting with that. And then society as, again, something is necessary. We need our community. We need our family. We need structures. We need healthcare. You know, we need a doctor to go to when we hurt ourselves or get sick. And I think that what I would say to Eduardo or really to anyone is a lot of what we think of as being necessary in society is unnecessary. It's rules and games laid out by other people for their benefit. You know, I've spoken at length about my sort of distaste for Instagram, even though, you know, I've also acknowledged the benefits, and just like this week, riffing with Gerhard, and we're going to get on the phone, and, you know, it's great. But in general, I think it's I still feel the same way as I did. And it's a whole game that someone else made that we're often expected to play. And of course you can opt out, but you pay a price. So I would say you know, as we've done with this project, with the podcast, with the 4, but also with the community that we're building, you don't have to reject necessarily society and become a loner in the woods, but you can start building community and groups and the sort of healthier stuff that you need or that you've seen modeled that has deeper value, that isn't just serving the needs of a corporation or a political framework or an ideology. It's something that you actually, that's serving those deeper human needs. And I think that's where Spider and I particularly, we're going back and forth on this a lot lately. It's kind of like, yeah, we're good at this. Yeah, they want this. But what do they need? What do people need? Because if we can serve that, it's better for us. It's better for them. It's healthier for everyone. We're building something solid. And so I would, you know, without rejecting society, there's lots of good things in society. I like the internet. I like Wikipedia. You know, I like Starbucks when I need coffee and it's late. I had one the other day. You know, it's late. It's not good coffee. Well, you know what I mean?
It's late.
Yeah.
What is this? What is
we just all had espresso besides you. It made us all a shot at the table.
Coffee at 8 o'clock when you're working until 2 in the morning is perfectly reasonable.
Josh was here till 8:30. He came with an yerba mate and a tall.
8:30 a.m.
Like I
was
said,
here when I got home.
I'm up for negotiating with bedtime. I'm the obviously the odd one out here.
Can I add one more thing to this Eduardo thing before? I wanted to start by trying to connect the two subjects because I obviously also find the latter part way more interesting. But I do the routine for nature so I can exist in society. I think that's what I was trying to come at it from. Like, it's the well-being, whether it's morning routine or Spider's dinners at 6 because it's going to be with a client, with a friend, with family, with someone. These are the things that are natural to us. We need sustenance. We need to make sure our heart rate variability is, cared for. We need to know that our diabetes is cared for if we have. We need to care about these things because nature will get us otherwise. So the routine is for self and our interaction with nature so that the societal implications can be
so we
managed.
can synchronize.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you can't synchronize chaos on two sides of a fence.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of join the two a little bit because that's why I do that.
That's a whole episode in Eduardo's question, which of course, he's a thoughtful dude. I will say one thing, there is, again, I struggle with the language and I'm not schooled in the textbooks about it, but there is a sort of an obsession with productivity in America that I sort of push back against. And if you're an artist, if you're truly an artist, and if you're doing artistic work that is profound and important and healing and necessary in the world, you can't follow the muse if you're on a leash tied to a post. You know what I mean? That's not how art works. Sometimes you stay up all night and fucking paint, and you're tired the next day and you're cranky, and there's a health cost, but you've made something that serves a higher purpose. So we're not all machines. We're not all made for that. But of course, you indulge that too much and you're in trouble again. We're back to that healthy tension. So, that's all I got.
Nice one. No, that's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Who's next?
Next one. Edsel. Another
we had such a good
fan favorite.
Edsel Holden III.
The third.
I'm excited just to hear his voice right now because this dude has energy. I love it.
In the chat, he wrote, I don't want to follow Eduardo.
Well, that's true. You're coming on.
I wouldn't either.
Coming on after Prior there. Yeah.
But here it is anyway. Sorry, man.
Generally, I've been thinking a lot about money. I've thought a lot about the housing market. I do not own property, and the bubble or lack thereof. The whole crypto thing's kind of spurred this interest in like money. Like, why the fuck do humans use money? Thinking also about language. Like, how does one communicate to the world where they think they're going, and effectively where they've come from? Things like that.
Things like that. Same.
I've been thinking about money and language.
Do we preface this by saying we are not financial advisors
or linguists,
nor is it seems anyone, and also everyone.
Even a cursory knowledge of my life knows that I'm not a financial advisor.
I do not own property either.
I like how he made that distinction.
Yeah.
I do not own property. For the record,
I do hold a fair amount of cryptocurrency, so I do care about what you're discussing a lot. I'm not religious about it. I don't day trade. I'm not interested in every new altcoin that sees itself jumps up crashes, jumps up again, crashes. That anxiety is for certain people. Gambler gene people probably thrive in this. I dabbled, and that was not for me. I think that there's no longevity in that, but there is longevity in crypto, and there are experts discussing this that we could point to that we probably shouldn't discuss on this podcast. But there is, on the topic of language meets money, that's what money is. Money is a story, right? We all know that. And crypto is just another version of it. It's a quote unquote decentralized version of it. But it is just a story. It's a story of trust.
Agreement.
It's an agreement of stored value that can be shared by humans, because it's definitely a human thing.
And we use it to transcend barbarism. So
but
it's been good for that.
But these are things that many of us that are listening or participating in the audio industry or any creative industry is a major stressor on us. I don't want this topic to be treaded lightly upon. Most of the people that I know in this industry that I talk to on a regular basis are not financially free, and have to earn their way day by day, month by month, year by year. And then a few outliers are very, very lucky. But I don't think it's the norm to be lucky. Someone at the table correct me if I'm wrong. I just don't. I think there are way more people doing what Rory's talking about, staying up that extra 6 hours, 3 hours in the middle of the night because they feel a higher calling to put something on paper or on tape, but can't afford Starbucks, but get it anyway to get through the night. Like, I think that's more of the regular and the common in major artistic metropolises like Los Angeles. And I think about this regularly. So, and I'm in the kind of the fringe. I'm kind of in the middle of the two, I'd say, where I'm comfortable for a longer period of time, but not long at all. So that's just my disclaimer from where my perspective is, because people don't talk about this on podcasts, and I started talking about it with Matt Rad last week when people asked, like, yo, can we hear about your rates? And I was like, fuck yeah, I don't care. Like, people are going to find out what I charge anyway. Like, why is this so taboo to talk about what you're negotiable on? Like, what rate are you doing it pro bono? Are you getting multiple royalty points? Like, why do we not know? It's private to a degree, but at the same time, if you're going to hire me, you're going to find out. So it's public knowledge somewhere what I charge to mix a record, right? So then you can calculate how many songs that come out. You can do the math. Like, the data exists. So why are we being so private about this stuff? I would expect and encourage more questions about money and the music business to come up and put people on the spot to respond to.
When we were mind mapping the audio engineers' needs, Michael and me, and with your guys' input, when we got to business management, which is all the stuff to do with your engineering business, your rates and
billing, and
all of that, and taxes and all the stuff, and then also the section on personal finance. Turns out there's a lot going on in those two categories, and that is the stuff that I don't hear people talking about ever. And it's really like, it's something I think people should get more serious about at an earlier age. And I think it is underestimated what financial headroom can do for your headspace and your nervous system and your ability to feel and be intuitive in your work, which is really what the work is of an audio engineer.
Also thinking about the fact.
No, I was just going to say, this is another one of those examples like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, in terms of how often are you having a Love Supreme level. That was our example, John, but like the sort of deep connection with a piece of art, be it a painting, be it a ballet, whatever. How often are you having that? This is another example of something where you shouldn't look to your peers to get a sense of what's healthy. They're all fucked. I can say that, the amount of, like, if we look at all of the engineers in LA, every single engineer, music engineer, how many of them could survive being ill for 2 months or not going home to mom and dad or moving in with a buddy or losing their place. Just 2 months, I say that as someone who spent a year sick where I could barely work and like, had years of impact from that in my life financially.
Yeah.
Very few, I would say, probably less than 10% of
if
working
you looked at
engineers.
25 to 35 or however you want to slice it, you'll get like different.
I'm having conversations with people who are 55 to 65 and 65 to 75.
Sure.
It's the same fucking thing at the end of the arc.
Yeah.
There isn't...
I'm sure the percentage is small in all of these.
So, where I wanted to go with this question, with the money thing, is I think we should look at the narratives and the myths. So, what's a classic rock and roll view of making money? Selling out. That fucking dude sold out, So we have this kind of dirty sort of sense of like making money in music because artists don't make money. That dude's a sellout. Their song was on a fucking, Cheetos ad or whatever. The sellouts, right?
I think selling out is as weak as it's ever been, like in popular culture or in music culture.
So that's an example of an unhealthy story around money. And then you look at like the sort of ridiculous bling culture in hip hop and R&B of just like Lambos and fucking, jets and, all of that. Another ridiculous, unhealthy sort of mythology, right? And there was another one I had just a moment ago. I've forgotten it now. But these stories that we tell ourselves around money they're not useful, and they're not.
Well, there's the lottery mentality, or
the lottery. That's the third one.
Around.
Yeah, it's the kind of pot of gold. Everyone imagines that if you just keep trucking, your ship will come in. And I'm like, I've said it on here. I know lots of people whose ship has come in. They're not okay. They're just not okay. So you've got to make sure that you're okay now, or working to be okay soon, because the people you think are okay, I had lunch with them like a year ago or 2 years ago, and they're not generally okay. They're not anywhere near as secure as you might imagine. It's funny because I talk to people in Ireland about like, I was just hanging out with so-and-so. And they're like, oh my God, that guy, they have a story in their mind who that guy is and how he has made it. And it's like, I'm not telling them otherwise, but I know otherwise.
There is a gap between, so if you go to like, if you find a template for like a home budget and try to fill in your details as like a music industry person or a songwriter or something, your life doesn't fit in those slots.
It also doesn't fit in Los Angeles.
Yeah. I mean, people with careers as opposed to jobs, right?
Yeah.
It's, and like the rules of the game are a little different, when you're thinking about having money in a publishing pipeline or, royalty-based income, like the sort of standard financial advice that maybe your parents could offer you, or like some internet thing, or videos you watch on YouTube. They don't apply to a lot of the way the income is set up. And when you're young and you don't have like, say you don't have like seed money or whatever, or savings, you can watch yourself doing you can observe yourself violating the sort of common wisdom around the way money works because, and feel comfortable about it because the rules are different in entertainment industry or the music industry or whatever. And there isn't that sort of clear, this is another area where there's a fundamental lack of guidance for young people. And there are taboos around talking about it. It's hard to know like where the lines are if the things are never talked about, right?
I agree. And as someone who likes to sort of pull at the reins of sort of the constraints of normal life in that way, I think most engineers would be really well served to be more ordinary and more thoughtful and more. The amount of engineers I see with bling gear, bling compressors, who are a week away from not making basic needs happen is ridiculous. It's like, and especially when we don't need those things anymore. This is why I'm sort of focusing on the mythology, these stories around money. And gear. I think it would really serve people to check out of the commonly accepted narrative, stop looking at their peers, and build this thing up from
use stock plugins
from the ground up. Yeah. What can you do?
Whatever.
Get your speakers right, get your acoustics right, and a bare bones DAW rig, and you can do a lot. Don't chase, the amount of money we see people blow on fancy outboard and stuff, and I know because I did it to try and level up, because they're being sold stories, and I guess I would just say on the money thing, it's a question. And Edsel and I talked some about this last night on the phone. I think most people would be in the music business, most engineers particularly would be better served to just be more pragmatic about it all and be a little bit more clear-eyed and less pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
And that might take a great deal of independence at this point, because the social norm, what does leveling up look like? It looks like buying gear.
Yes.
What else can it look like?
Yeah. We've I won't say fought, but we've certainly argued with people on many workshops about this, kind of like just itching to load up the credit card with the next shiny thing. And it's like, slow down, bro, slow down. Have you got money in the bank? Can you, if the next, Joni Mitchell or Nicki Minaj or, pick whoever, Taylor Swift, whatever if the next superstar, Adele, walks through the door and she's like, I'm putting myself in your hands to get my career kickstarted, can you stop mixing stuff for a month to record her? Have you got headroom to get behind some projects you love? What good is all this gear if you're on a treadmill of having to mix anything that comes through the door to pay for it? It levels you up to what?
Yeah.
More of that.
Does impressing other engineers get anyone work?
No.
That's a great way of putting it. What was
No.
Edsel's second question? There was
money,
language,
crypto, real estate,
but specifically on how to talk about where you've been and where you're going.
I want to take this one.
Yeah,
for
please.
a second.
Please, yeah.
So you can break narrative into a few parts. So there's an internal narrative and there's an external. With money, both of those are engaged. So there's the internal narrative that you have around money, whether you think you deserve it or not, wherever you came from, what your parents told you about money, what money actually is for, what it means, if you had it, what you would do. These things of like what money means to you personally and the story you tell around it. A great book is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I highly recommend that. Really changed my point of view on it. Basically about this guy who came from a poor family, had a friend whose father is super wealthy, and he's from a very young age started drawing parallels between these two parents. One parent who's a professor but broke and being like, you need to do this, do that, do that. And was very like strong about these beliefs. And he's like, but I'm just going to turn into you. Like, what does this mean? And then hang out with his best friend's dad and all of the advice he gave. And so this book is sort of a memoir and advice around money and how he developed the story. Really interesting book, very, very popular, probably a top something on Amazon. So that's the internal narrative side of things. Then the external narrative does relate to money as well, because I think considering that it was wrapped up in the same MP4 or M4A that was sent to us, I assume this is the narrative in which you say something and then money arrives at your door. And so that there is a narrative there. But I would say that in terms of getting money from someone else, there's a lot more that goes into that. I was talking to a buddy who's getting seed money for a startup that he's working on. And we were talking about value during art club, and he mentioned the fact that there's 3 different kinds of value. One is the value of the story, right? But it's a third of the value overall. So the story is important. You want to engage people emotionally. The narrative is important. People attached to narratives we have forever, and there's a reason, and it makes sense, and it engages all the parts of the brain. It's good, and that's important. But there's other parts of this value equation. There's quantitative stuff and there's qualitative stuff that's also important to look at. So advice on the narrative side of this equation to get more work or clients or the right clients. One question I would pose is, how much money do you actually need for the things that you want and value? If you value long-term security, how much is that? Quantify it, like really quantify it. And just do a rough assessment of how much money does it take to do those, and like how many songs would that take? And like, how much should I be charging? There's something amazing in the book I'm reading now where it's like, there's nothing worse than an underpaid consultant. Like, if you're overpaid, amazing, great. But if you're underpaid, that is like the biggest waste ever. And like the fact that you don't talk about money with people, and it's not an environment, not you, like people in general, the general you, doesn't talk about money, it results in people being like, yeah, I'll do it for $100 in the mix. And it's like, there's people charging thousands of dollars to mix. And like, that could have paid your rent in one song, and now you're doing 15. So like, thinking about your rates, what you need, what you value long-term, that's a very important narrative, not just the narrative people typically think of, like the marketing end and who am I talking to.
Yeah, I imagine
like
an A&R calling up a mixer. Hey man, I like this mix I heard. Like to do a couple songs, what's the rate? And you're like, it's like $750. And they're like, can I trust a mixer that only charges $750?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's got to be at least something that that I'm used to.
Yeah.
What does your rate mean in different social circles and in the social circles you want to be a part of that you're not yet?
And the rate setting is a classic chicken egg thing. People are waiting for the hit or the recognized record to hang the new rate on. It's a great question.
Yeah, we talked about it in our club, and I gave everyone my rate, and the next week, the most junior person on it was like, hey, I like had a client, and I gave them your rate, and I got it. And I was like, amazing.
Yeah, sick.
Like, cool.
Yeah.
This is very workshoppable.
Yeah.
It's one of all of these financial issues, like when we did the mind map, that's really where I thought, man, these workshops would be so valuable.
I'd like to say that I also don't know how to communicate where I'm heading. Not in money. I'm gonna separate them from this.
Thanks for reminding me.
That's where I came from, where I've been. That's kind of,
you just say order. You just you just talk in
order, draw, coffee.
Long
I think
Island
on the where you come from thing, I think Spider's been really sort of instructive for me in terms of like, we've often explored like the value of story, like, and also the dangers of story, of the stories that you're attached to, and the Byron Katie thing we've talked about. Who would you be without your story? All of that. But yesterday on the call with Edsel, we were talking. At some point he mentioned the arc of the podcast, the arc of me as a person, and where I was on day one on the podcast and where I am now. And I was like, I have no idea of what that is. I know that I'm better. I feel better. Yeah. I know that I can say I'm more comfortable on mic. But other than that, I have no idea what the arc is.
Don't let them fool you. We planned this whole thing.
I don't have that.
That turning the cliffhanger at the end of episode 20. Remember that? So set that one up. No.
But
so it's hard to have that perspective on yourself. I mean, maybe
kind of goes back to our dinner conversation a little bit, where are you on the side of enjoying surprises or planning things to look forward to? I really like the idea of, I like both, but I prefer to look forward to things because it keeps things moving. Like you said, on the road, you have the lines on the road, we're headed somewhere. It's nice to know, whether it's solo or with a family or with a partner, like where we're headed, where I'm headed. And I don't know how to communicate it, honestly. It really caught me.
And
really
also,
struck me.
How far out are you trying to communicate it? Because that's going to get into degrees
and to whom,
right?
Well, there's a clear distinction of professor versus or science scientific researcher versus artist, right? Like you can communicate that with a PhD or a master's with a degree, and we don't have that. We have a Grammy. But what the fuck does that mean? I know a lot of really successful engineers, producers, songwriters that don't have Grammys, and they're still day-to-day hired. I don't have a Grammy, and I'm hired every day. not at the level that I want to be at on the regular, but at a solid level, right? I don't know where I'm headed, or I can't communicate where I want to be headed. I mean, Graham and I talked about this a little bit today after mixing, and it's like, well, yeah, I want to be mixing hit records a lot of the time, but I also want to be mixing weird shit a lot of the time. I like
vibe stuff, yeah.
But, and I want to mix classical music. I hope I get Atmos mixes, of jazz records and put me in Birdland or something. Like I want to where are we going? I want there's. So is it context based? Are we? Am I inserting myself into a new place all the time? Whether that's relationally or I guess interpersonally or artistically, or is there a destination? Is there ever a destination for artists?
All journey.
It's all journey, right? Exactly.
But the journey isn't just the moment. It's also looking ahead and thinking about what you want.
Yeah.
And that's what I think you're so good at. I mean, we have
that. I feel so far from good at it.
Just think about the evolution of this place.
But it just happened.
We discussed so almost all of it before you did it.
But that's seeds. That's planting seeds.
So let me.
So when it's almost like luck, right? Then when luck strikes or opportunity strikes, you're oh, that's what I wanted to do, so now I can do it.
But you're not pressing random buttons and ordering things. You're thinking through the way the place is laid out and what's the flow of the day and how's the sofa for having people here and
right.
It's an imagination. It's fantasy. You're fantasizing about a possible future, and that's a kind of play.
I mean, I'm doing that now with a secondary home, like a home, when this becomes a studio only, right?
I'm just saying, I feel you communicate with me about where you're heading.
Yeah, but you're on my board of advisors,
and that's where I want to close. That's where I want to close this point on Edsel's question is when you talk about communicating where you come from, where you're going. Often where we're going, if you ask, and we've had this experience, Spider, more than once, if you ask big, scary questions that maybe you're ready for or enthusiastic about or curious about, quite often other people aren't. They find them unnerving, they find them disquieting, they find them insulting in some form or other. So if you want to move forward, you've got to surround yourself with people who are open to asking bigger, tougher questions and looking in the mirror a little more,
and who are curious about where you want to go, and
which is when you
interest.
You did that. You had Spider and other people around you. The whole concept of Find Your Four that we've talked about so many times. Having people where you can. What would it look like if I had 5 Grammys? What if I had 5 Grammys and I wasn't happy? Whatever. Those conversations of pushing through. What would it look like if I stopped making records? What would it look like if I was really successful and you weren't? What would it look like if you were successful and I wasn't? Asking these questions and having a group of people around you who will really go there, makes exploring narrative and letting go of unhealthy narratives a whole lot easier. That's what I got.
I think that looking back is the piece I wanted to address just quickly, because it came to me that what we love is the best of where we've been. So we've lived and we've experienced things, and the best of it are the things that we love. And so to communicate about the things you love is a way of talking about where you've been, where you come from. There's also the struggles and the things we overcome, and there's a time and a place for that too. And there's a certain kind of, I guess, deep gratitude that maybe looks like love that can come from, having overcome really difficult things. But I think that's a really interesting way of just simplifying the question. Just share what you love, be enthusiastic, share your enthusiasm. That's a way of communicating where you come from, where you've been.
Yeah, I love that.
Up next, we have William Reeves with New Recording 7.m4a.
It's going to be a smash.
Hi guys, my name is Will Reeves. I'm a mixing engineer from London. Recently I've been thinking about whether I should be trying to streamline my work into a specific genre rather than just taking on everything. I've had the mentality of just saying yes to a lot of projects this year because I wanted to build business and, you know, save for some things and also just build my network around me. But I'm thinking maybe now to progress in the direction that I want to, that it might be more beneficial to kind of pick a genre or an end destination and do what I can to kind of end up there via being more selective of projects. So yeah, any advice or recommendation on this would be great. Cheers.
Love that.
William Reeves, okay.
I want to do a little girlish shriek of excitement that someone in London is listening to us.
Yeah.
And more than that, reaching out to us with a thoughtful question. I'm just thrilled about that. That's all I got to say.
Yeah,
Feel that.
This is great.
Wavy.Maine official just emailed us.
Oh, sick.
Wavy.Maine?
Sick.
All right.
Let me jump in on this.
Sure.
Please. I was thinking about this today because I mixed what I would refer to as a Brazilian banger today in a genre I don't normally work in. And tonight's going to be a country record after this.
Brazilian banger. It sounds like a personal grooming option.
It's
Would you like the Brazilian banger or the...
I know, that's why it's comical to me to refer to it as that. But it's, you know, it's Brazilian artists and it's fucking Carnival, man.
Banger.
It's a banger. Like, it's big banger. I loved it. And I don't normally do that. And I've thought the same thing. I was like, maybe I should just R&B and jazz, you know, just like kind of these things. It's my favorite thing to mix is R&B, whether it's pop or, you know, left of center or whatever. But I had so much fun mixing this thing today, and I'm going to mix a country record tonight after this episode, and I'm excited to mix a country record. So that's my personal outlook, is I've always wanted to be cross-genre. I've looked up to Tony Maserati for that reason, and getting mentored by him, being able to mix a French jazz record and then Lady Gaga in the same day or two is like, I like that. I like that variety. I like what we talked about earlier. Michael brought up put a record on hold for a minute so you can let it sit and come back to it later. Like, you can do multi-genres in a day and you can separate it with an espresso or with a meal or with a conversation. There's so many ways to come at and refresh yourself with multi-genre. So I would answer the question, like, make sure that's what you want to do, because if you get I talked actually about this with Dale Becker the other day, where he doesn't do a lot of EDM stuff, but he was struggling with an EDM master just because the rules are different. Can't have fat bottom like an R&B record. And he's been in that realm, like with me, a lot of the time. And we were, he's like, maybe I should just not do that. I'm like, no. There's only so many R&B records, but there's so many other genres of music that if you can understand, like, maybe you compartmentalize them into different days. Maybe Thursday's EDM day, and you listen to reference points for that genre. I'm just going to rant for a bit and riff on this, just because I do think I think it's to each his own. I think it's whatever you want it to be. But there's so much more music out there than one genre. So if you're capable of understanding historical reference points on multiple genres, maybe you owe it to those genres to put your influence on these bits. Like, me mixing a classical record is going to be different than a classical person mixing a classical record. And maybe we can elevate the sound of classical music and make them even more hyper-realistic based on some tricks I've learned in popular music, right? So I don't want to pigeonhole myself. So my advice and answer to the question would be, only do that if you only like one genre and only feel capable of mixing one genre. I think there's a big world of music out there to only do one genre. And what is genre would be my question to open the floor to.
Can I go before I forget something?
Yeah.
I wrote it down and I know I won't even be able to understand it in a minute. I think that it's important to say that genre does not overlay with a specific set of values or an aesthetic. So, in the main, is heavy metal more aggressive than jazz? Yeah, in the main. But your as a mixer, and especially as a listener, as a creative, over time, you will come to recognize, or you will see reflected back at you from your clients, which you've always said, Spider, who's choosing you, you will realize and come to know that you have taste, and you have, some mixers have a natural sort of ability to inject energy and to make something sit up and jump out of the speakers on the open. Some mixers are, and I've got people in mind for all of these, I'm not going to tie the names to it tonight. Some mixers are masters at rhythm, at just making something where by the second chorus you're just dancing, you're moving, right? Other mixers are, it's about texture or warmth or immediacy or long-term engagement. They have a natural aesthetic. And if you look across genres, you see, oh, this guy or girl across genres seems to inject energy, or seems to bring out the song, or seems to be a groove guy or a rhythm guy or a bottom end guy, whatever. So to me, the much bigger project, instead of picking a genre and focusing on it, the genre will come and go. It will have its moment in the sun and then not, and then back again, and be, this process of discovery about your values. Let's say, for me in the last minute, it's been this sort of sense of creativity or artfulness or records with something to say. That doesn't tie me to any genre. There are EDM records with something to say. Like, say, for example, intelligent music. I consider Radiohead to be intelligent music. And you would say, in the main, isn't jazz intelligent music? There are some dumb fucking jazz records, like really dumb. You go to the modern jazz playlists on Spotify or whatever, and it's like, there's a lot of dumb music. It's just fucking dumb. So
I don't know why Luck Be a Lady Tonight came to my head. Like, what is, like, that's not intelligent music, and it's a jazz record.
Yeah.
It doesn't even make any sense. I'm sorry, I don't know why that came to my head.
Just to close up my point, I would say a process of discovery. It's true. A process of discovery. So about what it is that you value, what you're good at, how you hear things. And I would be looking for as many ways to express that as possible. Like, if you're a groove guy, for example, bring that to genres that maybe could use a little fucking groove. You know what I mean? If you're a bottom end guy, it's like, can't we give some of these jazz records some real bottom end, like whatever, Yes. And the more you play with different genres as a way of expressing your values and finding people who value you, I don't know. That's where I'm coming from.
No, the reason why I'm hired to mix this country album that I'm starting tonight, because the deadline is so tight, is because they want my bottom end in country. They were like, I want it to clip a little, I want to distort, and I want that warmth, and I want that groove. I want you to loosen up what we've done. Everything's so tight down there in country radio. It's tight. It's tight. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's a different thing, and they're asking for a different thing, and they're coming to the person they know that will deliver on that,
who has those values.
And if I said, "Oh, I don't do country," then I'm placing myself outside of the chance to inject my aesthetic that is desired. That's
you do you, and you can do it on their record if they want it.
Yeah. I like that point of view. That's really helpful for me as well. Yeah.
I have a framework here that I think everything you guys said fits into the one dimension, which is personal interest. It's like, what do you want? Like, how do you want to spend your time? What do you want to work on? But I think the reality is that genres are associated with different social networks. So the other question is, who are the people you want to work with? Like, who are the people you want to be in contact with? What are the social networks, the social circles that, because what I'm assuming is that about William's point of view is that he thinks there's an advantage to focusing on a specific genre. And what I think the advantage is that your name becomes commonplace in a social circle. I think that's the bottom line. In the way things work, the nature of it. And the other factor to balance, or the other dimension, is just feasibility. Like, what kind of money is there in various genres, right? If you're like, I'm just going to mix jazz now, I'd be like,
I'd advise
you got
against.
a trust fund?
Yeah.
What do we got in the background? So I think if you balance those factors, I think you're at the root of it. Because you can work across genres if for whatever reason you're a part of multiple social circles, or if there's a multi-genre social circle that you're a part of. So I think that's just a sort of way of mapping the situation to try to arrive at a balance of those three things.
Yeah, I like it.
That's Michael's influence on me here.
I know, I saw that. I was so proud.
Popping up, Frank.
Yeah, he's got his notes open. I just went to Wikipedia because there was a few quotes I remember seeing on there. But I think at the core of it, getting back to narratives, there is a narrative around specialization, and it's very important to recognize that. Like, societally, there is a regard for specialization in the workforce. So you're always, like, whether you realize that until now or not, you're always fighting that current. Culturally, your parents and people around you and friends, they're all subscribing to that narrative, whether they know it or not.
And there's overwhelm.
Yeah.
So neurologically, we're putting people in categories involuntarily.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
From sheer overwhelm.
I'm just talking just from an economic standpoint. But and then there's all other points, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, socially, it's like, oh, you're the funny guy. Like, you're serious. All these little micro groupings. But economically, specialization is a thing. And so, and it's been a thing since, I guess.
Since organizations?
Yeah,
probably?
A little bit before. Yeah.
It's division of labor.
Yeah, exactly. But if you think early on, we were all generalists. Like, you were hunting, but you were also skinning. You were also doing these things. You weren't just like, look, I'm only throwing one arrow, this specific kind, only at this time. Like, that's my skill. And so over time, we specialized. It just came way with other technologies we had. But I think we're hitting another inflection point in the economy where it's actually changing the other way again, where it's like, as long as you're providing high value, people want to work with you. That's why people are coming to you of all sorts of genres, because they know that the value is there. The majority of the value, which is, maybe you've never mixed a country song before, but all the other things work, whether that's specific frequencies they're looking for and how you work with it, or your professionalism or whatever it may be.
That's a different way of specializing.
Yeah.
Specializing in dynamic low end, or, it's not genre specific.
That's my thing. It's a value. It's an aesthetic. Yeah. And it can be applied to whatever's new. If someone invents something new and it has bottom end, which is kind of likely if it's music, then you can play a role in it.
I like saying that it's a value more than a specialization, only because valuing it means you want to invest time in it. Specialization means you're not investing time in anything else, and you're like kind of converging on that point. And I think there's sort of this divergence happening in the world where it's like you're opening yourself up to more things. But again, back to the core point. The narrative is that specialization is like important and required
valuable.
And is valuable without. I mean, I didn't think about it until I read this, because I was going through my own thing where I'm like, I have all these different skills. Like, what do you do when you have all these different skills? Like, and I found this term multi-potentiality. I went to the Wikipedia, I'm scrolling, and it's like, oh shit, yeah, there was like a moment where specialization just became a trend, just like organic became a trend.
Yes. You don't question it.
Yeah,
it's a culture.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a cultural thing.
It's like, this isn't just you were born like from the beginning of time, everyone was specialist. It just became a thing. And then what if it's not anymore?
And plenty of people have talked about this, but it's an outgrowth of the Henry Ford and the production line. And it's like, well, you screw in the wheels and you put the seats in, and it's like, and we.
Well, let's pull back a little bit, because we need specialists to go deep on very narrow things in virology and biology, health. Like, we need, but we need much better communication between these silos. I think that's evident. Specialization matters. I mean,
we wouldn't argue against that. Yeah. But I would say that a theme that sort of emerged a couple of times over the last couple of weeks is this idea of being bilingual, of being very good at two different things, or more than two things, and being able to connect worlds. you know, and
being a bridge between worlds.
Being a bridge between worlds. And I think so much of the exciting stuff that's happening in the world is coming from people who
synthesize
work in multiple disciplines or domains, and you know, being someone who can bring some humanity from, you know, the real world to like pop vocals that has value, you know, because people value humanity, even if the pop music world in general doesn't seem to. It seems to want to squeeze every bit of it out of a vocal at this point. But there's a demand, a latent demand for that. You know, we've talked about this.
This sounds like an evolution of the way we have this conversation a year ago, because we were much more in the framework of the conversation we were having, we were much more on encouraging people to specialize.
Very much so.
But I think that's within, I don't know that our ideas have changed. That is a thing, and that is the thing we were noticing that people were suffering from. They're just saying yes to everything perpetually and never creating an identity, right? It was almost like a branding problem. We're approaching it from different sides, right? And I think all of that holds true as still, but I think because of the dynamics of social networks and the way social circles work, that genre may not be the thing. Like we talked a lot about, like when you're young, it's like, oh, maybe you should spend some time with a score mixer. You know, if you're interested in audio engineering, when you're young, spend some time with a score mixer, see what that world's like. Spend some time making records, writing camps, like doing the different things, mastering engine. Spend some time with a mastering engineer. See, you know, do all the things to experiment to see what really resonates as you're getting an education. Or as you're beginning to take on this lifelong education. But at a certain point, it's like, you know, we were talking about the various roles engineers play and why specializing, especially in the top 40 community, is an advantage, and why not specializing can be such a disadvantage. To be tracking people one day and mastering the next and then mixing the next day, and you've got other people doing those single things all the time, every day. How do you compete? Just at a level of practice and craft.
I'm thinking of one specific client that we did a workshop with Spider, and I think you're right about how our views have evolved. And what I would say that, you know, the reality is that most people do have to accept most of what comes in the door when they're younger and getting started, to pay the bills and to just get the reps in.
And we don't know where William Reeves is on this trajectory.
But what we are advising people more lately as we sort of go through workshops is, don't wait for the market to bestow onto you, you know, your specialty or your brand. Go and claim it. If so the phone is ringing or the inbox is fucking lighting up with work, hooray for you. You can eat more ramen and pay your rent, right? That's great. It's healthy, it's good. But if you want to make records like Phoebe Bridgers, or if you want to make pop punk records, or you want to do whatever, EDM, go and find artists, claim it, develop someone, spend the time to make something great. You know, don't wait for it to sort of to randomly come through your inbox and be like, oh, and then maybe it hits or maybe it doesn't.
And if it doesn't hit, swing again.
Yeah, exactly. So this idea of, you know, be grateful for the work that's coming, but if there's stuff that excites you and stuff where you can express, you know, this category of one idea where you can get closer to being the only guy or girl who could fill that seat, chase that. Even if it's pro bono, even if it's at your cost, even if it's for points or a share or whatever, and develop something that you can be proud of.
Yeah, have a say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, move the needle towards artisan. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was extensive. That was great. I'm surprised we haven't even talked about that yet. What a great question.
Yeah.
I also feel like if you're a mix engineer who's committed to mixing audio for artists, whether they're bands or whatever, that's a specialization. Like,
that's right.
Genre isn't necessarily a specialization. It doesn't have to be. It's a genre, but it's still recorded audio that needs to be mixed. So I think it's partially a reframing exercise, and I also think it's partially like there's a few whys behind that. It's like, are you looking to weed out some clients because they're not paying right? And then that gets into the last question we answered about paying. Like maybe you're just not charging enough or something. You know, like what's the why behind it?
Yeah, it's one of the...
Or do you just hate the work that you're working on and some things you want to get rid of that? Well, then yeah, you should. And you should look for better artists and that kind of thing. But I guess it depends on like you said with Eduardo, I was like, why are you resisting developing habits? It's like, well, what is really compelling you to say specialization is the answer? Because what's the question?
What's the problem?
Yeah,
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's the problem? I guess that's the first thing I'd really want to know.
And sometimes the problem is just like society says specialization is a thing that I need to do. And sometimes you don't realize it until you realize it, like, oh, wait, I don't have to do that? All right, cool.
And
I'm going to keep these clients.
Maybe he has a very good reason.
Yeah.
Or mixers are more visible. You know, Serban mixes pop. It's these people rise above and they're bright and shiny in the pantheon of mixers, the specialists.
But
you know
year
what I mean?
one,
That's
year
the hierarchy.
2, year 3, was he mixing only pop?
Don't know.
Don't know.
Yeah,
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's
I
like,
don't think
if we
so.
don't know the history, how are we modeling, you're not going to be, I don't know how old he is, how much experience he has, but like, you're not going to be that tonight anyway. So
I'm much less interested in that. I'm only saying that this is how it is, not how I want it to be.
Right.
I think the music industry is changing fast, and I think that there's much more opportunity to claim new terrain than people might imagine.
Absolutely agree.
The other part about genre,
absolutely.
like working within genres, is that more and more I came upon a concert this weekend, which is a whole different story. It was incredible seeing these high schoolers play live out in public. And it was like being at a show growing up. But what struck me the most is like in between covering Nirvana Smells Like Teen Spirit and then playing some jazzy experimental music, their friend who's a rapper came on, did 2 songs. Then they kept playing like other originals, totally different genres, one band. So like,
Sounds like Brockhampton.
Right. And this is what I mean. So more people are integrating all different influences. So if you're like, hey, I only mix pure hip hop,
you might miss part of an
if
album.
You
then
sing, I can't mix the first
that's
verse.
why
I can only mix the chorus.
That's why I'm saying genre synonymous with social circle. It's the question is, what scene do I want to be a part of? It's not genre. I mean, we all know genres like these are blurry lines. And it's
but the scene. I'm saying I think the scenes are changing. I think we're going back to this sort of divergent economy rather than a convergent economy, where it's like these lines are being even more blurred to the point of like, what's money? Well, I don't get it. Same thing with genres. Like, well, why are we doing this? Like, how come you can't sing and rap, or like have 10 singers and 10 rappers? Like,
nobody even
scary.
Yeah, really?
I mean, just the
nobody
dissolution of structure in the world.
Yeah, but nobody talks about.
Like so scary.
Nobody
conservative over here.
No,
I dig it. I'm with you.
No, but nobody talks about genre when they hire you. The country artist isn't saying, "Hey, here's my country song." They're sending me a record. Like, who's talking about genre with the word? No one says, "Can you make it more pop?" It's pop. Can you make it more R&B? No, you can't. It is R&B. That's actually. I've never thought about this. Like, I don't get an email with a genre in it. No one's talking about it. So what is genre?
Country.
You know what's really
genre
funny?
is a way to put it on a playlist, and even those playlists are blurry. I don't even
quite often for never for labels anymore or anything, but for young artists, they'll ask me for an MP3. Particularly from Europe, they'll often say, can you send an MP3 of the thing? I'm very reluctant to send out MP3s at all because they get used for like, they'll upload them to Bandcamp and it's like, and it goes, or like they'll take an MP3 and put it on SoundCloud and like, that's a whole other, that's gnarly. So I'm like, use the WAV for everything. Just use the WAV file all the time. But when they do, I have to fill in, I'm like artist, song, year, and then genre. And it's like, very often I'm like, I don't actually know. Like I've been making records a long time and I don't know what this is. It's kind of country pop R&B. And it's like, so like I don't know
country and B.
So I just leave it blank. But it's funny how often I would struggle to fill that thing. I mean, half the time
I
I'm
gave
like,
up
I
on
don't
that
Same.
2 decades ago.
You maintained an iTunes library and tried to keep order, and genre was like, well, I need to make up weird groupings here.
Yeah.
That an organizational
But can we just marvel
structure.
over the word though for a second? Genre.
Genre?
Can we just marvel over that? That's a great word that we don't need to use anymore.
word,
When Christopher Nolan
Can we just
says
can't-
it's very elegant.
Yeah, totally.
Then
totally.
it means something.
Genre.
Did just to bring our friends Brockhampton back into the conversation,
yeah.
did Brockhampton cancel genre?
I think they're part of a movement
Yeah,
of not worrying about genre. So if you think about genre in iTunes, that's literally an interface designer's choice to put that there, right?
Yeah.
No one like it was a requirement.
They were sections
that
in
a
the
designer,
iTunes store.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there are artists trying to
Right.
break categories of the Grammys and blow them up because they don't believe in genre.
Right.
This is definitely a movement.
This is what I mean. It's part of that divergent economy.
Going back to Will's question about it, I actually, now that we've dissected all of this, I don't even think that that's a concern. I think it's value oriented. I think it's what Rory said. I think it's really that. And just to tie some sort of knot on it to move on to the next is, I was thinking it's so pigeonholed to, sure, like I want to mix this genre, or I'm better at this. I understand this one more. So I should do that just because I'm better at it. Versus I've never even been asked to mix a certain genre. I just said yes to a record because I liked it.
And I don't know if this is good advice, but if there is an artist that you don't want to work with for you're too busy or something, there's plenty of people that are following this account that would love that work.
Right.
That might actually need that work for their family or their apartment or their life. So another reason worth connecting with people that you admire and respect. And if you're in a privileged enough place to turn down work, awesome. Definitely worth congratulating because that's hard to do. And acknowledge there's people that would love it. And the people you connect with, that you trust, that you build trust with, it's worth sending stuff their way and helping someone else out.
We're joined forces.
Yeah.
Co-mix.
Mm-hmm.
Can we move on?
Can you imagine two definitely. Can you imagine two mixers who young, sort of saying yes to everything? They both think it's a good idea to specialize more, like be a little more genre specific. And one dude's like, I'll go R&B, you go hip hop, and we help each other. And, you can
two funnels and then send the work to each to the specialist.
No, I mean, this is
Same pair
the
of
gift shop
pants.
model with Ingmar and Josh and I. It was that exact thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Ingmar does atmosphere better than I do, and like does this vibe better. He should do this.
Attracts different artists.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
such.
yeah. I'm still very interested in that concept.
Yeah, who's next?
Wow, people seem really psyched on the episode.
Cool.
It's great. Getting some messages in there.
Sick.
Wavy.Maine.
We should keep going then.
Yeah.
Wavy.Maine.
Wavy
No, please.
Maine.
Yeah.
Like the state.
I'm glad you guys are speaking on this topic because one of my main questions is how does a small artist get an engineer who works with some of the biggest artists in the world to take him on as a client, help him work on his music when there are so many people who are, asking for the same thing? How does an artist go about that?
Tell you a good start. Have a voice like that.
Yeah, right.
Because I'll just listen to you fucking talk on the phone. I'm not who he wants to work with, but like that's a great voice.
He doesn't know that, and you don't know that.
Is Wavy.Maine an
Yeah,
artist?
no, I'm
take that back.
Okay, I'll take it back.
If
But,
Wavy.Maine is not an artist, they should be. Because that
I'm
voice.
just imagining it referring to. I'm imagining. I don't know. Sorry, Wavy. I think you're great. I don't know. I don't know what you look like, but I imagine you have a very wavy mane. Like,
can we
it's
play it
Maine
again?
like the state, not Maine, M-A-N-E.
Can we play it again? I want to hear this question again.
I love how you said wavy, like you want addressing. Oh man, we out here. Here we go. Take 2, Wavy.Maine. This is Damon Court 4.m4a.
I'm glad you guys are speaking on this topic because one of my main questions is how does a small artist get an engineer who works with some of the biggest artists in the world to take him on as a client, help him work on his music when there are so many people who are, asking for the same thing? How does an artist go about that?
Man, that is a great question.
So can I ask a question back?
Yeah.
Which is why an engineer who works with some of the biggest artists in the world, why not the right engineer for your record? Why, like, it might be that Spike is the right engineer for your record. It might not. But, there's a kind of an assumption there that say the guy who mixed whatever or girl is the one you need. Now, of course, if they're making records you love the sound of, and they have a proven track record, it's not
the safest bet.
Yeah. But what I'm thinking is if you're on one side of the river, and the green grass is on the other, and you're like the only way over is via someone who's mixed a hit record, then you might be on this bank a long time.
Yeah.
So it might be that you can get there with someone who hasn't mixed a giant smash or recorded or whatever. And, that's
overall great advice. Speaking on Wavy's behalf, I know I read his comments in the chat of Matt Rad yesterday, and he's in a small town, probably in Maine, that there's no like-minded. He doesn't trust people's feedback in his community, so he can't find the local person like you're talking about. Because if you're in Los Angeles, the burgeoning artist or the attempted, maybe it's a songwriter attempting to be an artist, finds a young engineer and develops trust with them. And yes, they don't have clout or any sort of accolade, but they have vibe, they have a microphone and a preamp.
Yes.
That's an easier thing to...
Important to say, I didn't say find the local guy. I'm saying find the right engineer might necessarily be the famous one or the right producer.
Sure.
For you.
Yeah.
But sorry, carry on.
But how then? Well, my question back to that would be then how do you find that person? Because that person doesn't exist.
I think it's a great thing for an artist to aspire to work with great engineers.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
I do too.
So if we're looking at the kind of engineers that Wavy's talking about, I would say you work with them not in one fell swoop, but in steps. Like, you get to work with these people because you manage to get the best out of every working situation that you are able to manage. And every subsequent record and project is a chance to level up toward your aspiration. So, I don't know how you approach the top engineers in the world. You can do that. Go right ahead. I guess nothing's stopping you. Be friendly. I don't know. Like, how does one get a job working for Elon Musk?
Yeah.
It's in general terms, there's never been an easier time to approach a big engineer producer because you can get most people on a DM or someone on their team. It's of course you're not always going to get a response.
Hey, listen to my record. We know this is a tough one.
Not hey, listen to my record, but I think I would go back a step and say you need to be able to articulate who you are and why you're doing what you're doing, what it is you have to say,
and why you think this person is of specific value.
The reality is, most people are not developing. Most mixers, many producers are not developing artists from scratch. So if you have no budget, they're working for a fee. So they need a fee, to keep the lights on and to pay for their team and the whole thing. So what you probably are looking for more than access to the engineers is management or help in getting a budget together. You know what I mean? It's people who believe in you. You need to find people who believe in you who can then unlock. There's just like a step in between, right? Because it's just that, like, I'm think of the top 5 mixers that we know. How many of them are, aside from, people doing pro bono work for an old homie, like this guy was my roommate 20 years ago, and like how many of them are developing artists, mixing for stuff they believe in on the regular? Not many, I don't think. I think in fairness to him, Jason Joshua has been public about mixing stuff for free that he believed in. And he's one of the few people I've seen talk about it. So I'm not saying there's no one, but
I'd like to just add that most likely, I can't speak for anybody, that there's a royalty involved in a decision like that. Mm-hmm. No fee is different than free.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Pro bono is different than I have 5 points on your record.
Very important distinction. But
because I've done that too, and and been public about it as well. But that's not free.
And artists who aren't well known, royalties is a very iffy part of the equation.
Yeah. So most likely you'll see nothing.
So if we say, the question was specifically about engineers, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we say most of the high profile engineers are working for a fee most all of the time, without a fee, they can't do it for you because they've got someone who has a fee ready to go, people in line. So you need to get the fee together, or at least a good proportion of the fee, to work with some of these people. And to do that, you have to get people who believe in you, people who will unlock resources, be it labels, which is kind of seems quaint now at this point, but it still works. But management, particularly investment. And to do that, you need to put yourself out there with a clear sense of who you are and what you stand for, of what your voice is. So, for example, there are singers who can absolutely rock IG with an acoustic guitar, who might want to make R&B records, fully produced, lush R&B records, but they can put the heart of what they are on an IG live or on a short video. Yeah. So if you can do it, get your that voice. If Wavy is a singer, I would have to assume that voice translates into something beautiful, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. So okay, if the vision is like the most epic Kanye record or whatever, that's great, or bigger yet. But if you can get the heart of what you're about across on IG or on TikTok,
it's undeniable.
And that stuff travels. And the same with shows. It's like if you can get on a bus or get on a plane and get to New York once things open back up, or wherever is near, wherever that metropolis is, hotel, cafe, or whatever. And it's like getting in those rooms where you have the opportunity to meet the people who get behind artists, who do support artists. And there's a lot of management, there's a lot of labels who have the direct line to the mixers and the engineers that you want to work with. They're sending them work all the time. That's a way easier way in the door.
Yeah, I want to just add one thing that Spider already said and just kind of double down on it. If you're going to reach out to an engineer or any of the people that Rory's talking about, management, investment, label, PR person, just anything, any person that you want on your team, let them know that you understand who they are and what they bring to the table and what they offer you, what they can offer you that you can offer them as well. Because show me, like if you were to cold email me, I was going to say that I don't want to speak for my team, but I don't want to lie, but I would say that we respond to 95, maybe 100% of requests to mix songs or requests for rates and availability of any level, because we're always down to hear a record, and if it's cool and you got funds and whatever it is, like we're going to take it seriously. I have 2 other mixers on my team that are in need of work, and so I'm always either listening or sending on to my team to listen and read. But the ones that stand out that I will reply to either personally or say, yo, Nathaniel, like, let's take care of this, is they like something very specific or mention something specific that only I can do, or I know that only I add to a record, or makes me feel that way, whether that's true or not. So there's something that has to be personal. If you send me your bio, the amount of streams you had on your first 6 singles and a shitty record, like it's not, I don't care how much money you have. Like that's not the way in the door. So the success and the reference points that you sound like, everyone wants to be D'Angelo. Like let's get that out of the email. Like D'Angelo's your reference, so is every reference for the past fucking 40 years. Sorry, that's too much. 20 years, right? There's better ways. Sorry, I'm laughing at myself. There are better ways to get someone like me or Manny's team or Alex Toomey or, you know, L10 mixed it, like, we'll respond if you hit us. We're fucking young, hungry, interested, finding new shit. I want to help. I want to be part of new records. I'm not only trying to mix quote unquote A-list record label artists. Like some of my biggest success is with independent artists that have a distribution deal and have a platform. You know, we're all in it to win it, and we all want to help, but choose your words wisely and don't sell yourself.
Dude, what happens if all of that is in line? Personal connection, you love the material, a financial thing can be worked out. But what if the record's not ready to be mixed?
How do you mean? Yeah,
I'm not saying Wavy is in this situation because I have no idea.
No, I'm curious. What do you mean
not
ready to be mixed? Who's to say?
I mean, what I mean is, like, what if you hear the record and you're like, and you you get the files and you're like, this isn't ready for prime time. Yeah. Like, what do you? I mean, can you tell just listening to it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say yes to a record that wasn't ready to be mixed because I'm not interested in producing your record.
But what if you thought the music was so interesting and the person so unique?
Probably send it to Tyler, send it to OG Volta. Like, what do you guys think of this? You know, send it to the homies and pass it around, and like, which I've done before. I'm like, yeah, what do you think about this record?
Maybe find a collaborator or at least some feedback to help them.
But that wouldn't be an engineer role. That would be more of a producer role. You know.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a voice here. There's something special here, and because of where we're at, and people are looking to us, you know, for some sort of service or feedback, we are privileged to have access to people that are, you know,
so young. You get them in some development funnel.
Yeah. I don't think about that often because I like mixing records, but sure, yeah.
I mean, you got to imagine it's going to happen at some point.
Yeah. And I listen to most of the things that come through. So yeah.
I think if people have something to say, if they're being authentic to themselves and not knocking off Bruno Mars or, you know, insert whatever famous artist here, if they're sort of reaching for their own voice, they'll connect with someone. They'll find the right people eventually. You know, we talked about it recently with a client. It's like there's this very common myth that, you know, there's all these great artists that never got their shot. It's like, where? I don't hear them. You know, when people point to them, like, yeah, remember these guys at home? It's like, they weren't all that. They didn't have all the puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
You know, the great artists that I knew, who I saw from humble beginnings, like really, you know, playing small shows, it was like, they're going to go.
Undeniable.
And they went. They, you know, now, did they all go like, you know, Ed Sheeran? No. Like, but they went as in they all bought houses. They all got multiple publishing deals. They all got signed. They're all still working in music 25 years later.
Yeah.
All of them can still sell out 1,000-seaters, you know, at home. Maybe not, you know, in Germany anymore. I don't know, but they're all okay. So, you know, you've got to find that thing in your music. I think that sort of that undeniable truth and that thing that's uniquely you.
And someone's going to hear it and react to it and want to work on it.
I believe so. If you have it, you know.
Yeah.
And it might be that in trying to find it, you realize you're a producer and not an artist, or a writer and and that's the whole journey. You've got to have a stone to sharpen yourself on, you know. Like, that's the work, you know.
There was feedback from Wavy in the chat.
Oh, great.
He said, I wanted to clarify. I meant an artist with the budget. I have that. I meant more of where to look and the best way to contact them.
Yeah.
Where to look?
The records.
The records. Good, right? We all got emails.
Yeah.
Instagram. Well, maybe another way of looking at that question is, where does, like, records you like? Is it safe to assume that you like them because of the mixer, or like them because of the engineer? So maybe it's that line of like, how do I know who's my guy or girl? I don't know. That's interesting. It's
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I'm actually more confused on that part of the question. It's easy to find us.
Yeah,
it's easy to find.
Hit us up before we won't have long left, but hit us up maybe before the end. And
it's easy to find. You contact Serban through his website at AAM Management. Like there's,
Well, I suppose, that's why I'm thinking is the question, how do I know who my fit is, who the right fit for me is? So
right.
There's 10 A-list mixers, so why Spike over Josh? Why Josh over Tony?
Is that the question? Because that makes sense, yeah.
That's how I would hear it, but I don't know.
I mean, you can listen to a lot of these engineers talk on the internet, on YouTube. Yeah. I would see who resonates with you, their values. Like,
that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, you listen to Al Schmidt talk for a while.
Yeah, and then other artists.
Yeah,
other artists' experience of being of working with people.
Who do they choose? The artists you like, who do they choose to work with?
I love hearing artist stories of, and more than who did they choose, like what was their experience of it with the people that you have access to,
But I would look at repeat business, like who keeps going back to the same people.
I'm thinking of an engineer that I have a strong distaste for, and I've spoken to several producers who've worked with him who loved the experience, loved it. So it's kind of like, I don't know much about it from the outside. The guy who made the record with him, their opinion is worth way more than mine, which is from, maybe some personal experience, but not that much,
Sure.
Jordan Velarde.
Can we say that this might be the last one? I mean, we're almost 3 hours in.
2 more.
I'm getting a little tired.
I think 3 technically.
Right. I mean, we can do it for the people.
I'm gonna have to go to the bathroom.
That's okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. I got like a hour drive back.
Yeah, you got an hour. Yeah, you got a long drive. I'm getting tired.
I say we get to everybody and
we can tighten them up.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can be
really.
More
can we?
This is for the.
I like the format. I mean, I like going in and
keep it for the people, man. Let's do it for the people.
Graham is being a grown up here and suggesting 5 minutes each.
Okay.
I'm immediately like, discipline.
I know. I think we did 15 each, but okay, let's go.
Let's go.
You're right.
Let's go. Let's hit it.
Jordan, here we go.
The voices. I love it.
Should I read the preface?
Hello.
It's kind of long-winded, but I tried to condense it and structure it in a way that will hopefully make sense to at least one of you. Looking forward to listening. Thanks. Cool.
Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. Just want to say thanks for reaching out and presenting such a cool opportunity. So I've recently bought Hazelrigg VLC 1 and obviously have fallen in love with it super quickly. I started running every sound through it before actually beginning the mixing process, and it's working out really well for me. However, what's really been on my mind is trying to understand its advantages and weaknesses within the scope of the entire mix process. Meaning, like, at what point do I back off on boosting top end on a vocal based on what the mix bus is going to want later on? So it always helps me to understand something when I can draw a parallel. The one thing I do understand well on a full start to finish basis is cooking. One of the main things that helped me learn cooking was studying the concept of salt, fat, acid, and heat. So at the end of the day, I believe it's going to help me to think of the mix process in a similar way. A mix typically calls for a few key components to be balanced and thought out just as a plate of food does. The concept is interesting to me because it can be interpreted in so many different ways. And so far I've arrived at thinking of the VLC as kind of my salt to bring out the best natural character of each track. You never want something to be bland, but you also don't want to over-season. So this is me trying to figure out what exactly that means within my new process. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts and interpretations on this concept. And thanks again.
I'm gonna go in because it's a man in my own head. I swear that was me talking in a very different voice. We normally don't cover technical bits on this, so I'm reluctant to really answer the question because I do what you're talking about, Jordan. I send almost every stem through it.
You season your stems.
I season my stems quite liberally. I actually do something a little bit wild, and every EQ on the high boost is all the way up, and the high cut is also all the way up, and they're in the flipped frequencies. meaning the high boost is in the high and the high cut is in the low. So it does a phase shift, and it's on every EQ except for one I keep flat. I have 12 of them. So, and then I just send a stem to it, and if I like it, it stays. If I don't like it, I take it off. Most of the time I like it. Sometimes it's over-seasoned. Sometimes in an electronic sounding record, it just doesn't want that much juice. Doesn't want that much. You say salt, I see it as heat, in a sense, where it's the foundation of everything, which so is salt in a way where like you can't eat meat without salt. I mean, you can, but it's not what we as humans think or taste as meat. I see it as heat. I see it as you need those. Man, this is really. I just don't want to get too technical. I understand your philosophy. I practice the exact philosophy, and I like the results that I get from VLC on most things. But again, you don't want to overseason. You don't want to overcook. So I'm just like, be careful with that. And it's very genre specific. I know he said it's not genre, but it's source material specific. Some things, man.
You say always be listening.
Always, that's what I'm trying to get at without
and
just,
in context.
Yeah. I love the cooking metaphor. We can only hear three things in focus at one time anyway, so find those three elements, and maybe that's where you start with the stems, because there's two questions going on in this question, which is, well, what do you think about the VLC? And also, I mean, I can't say enough great about it, and also, how do you balance a mix? Which is a very vague...
yeah.
What?
Can I go?
Yeah, please.
Can I try?
Can I try?
So
I tried. I think I failed, but
I think you did. I think you did good. I think that you should run everything through the VLC to start, and you should do that pretty much with every new piece of gear you buy. And you probably shouldn't buy that many new pieces of gear.
Yeah,
but you should know. I talked to a mastering engineer friend yesterday, first time in really since COVID probably, and we were talking about a particular tool and how it compares to a bunch of other tools. It was a limiter in this case. But we both very quickly, he works all in EDM, very quickly converged on the fact that this tool is very predictable. If you give me a master and I get to EQ it, I can tell you what's going to come out the other end when I limit it every time. Mm-hmm. It's a very predictable tool. It's a hammer with a nice even weight. I know how it swings. I know how it feels. I know how it's going to drive that nail, right? And that's very important because it gets me out of... I'm not rolling a dice when it comes to making things louder at the end of the record. I build the EQ, I process the track, and I know how it's going to hit that tool. And you need that for every tool you mix with. You need to have that level of intuition so that you're not... And of course, you can't have that because you have to try new things from time to time and you have to go experiment. But the idea that you can hear a sound and know, well, in this context, putting this thing through the VLC will round it and warm it and maybe blur the edges ever so slightly, or maybe if I push the top end it'll give me some focus and bring it forward, and that's good in contrast to the Juno, which I'm not going to do that with.
Contrast is key.
So that's where I was headed.
Yeah.
You use these, so once you understand your flavors, and that will be a bright digital EQ versus an analog outboard or whatever, whether to put a 2-bus thing, compressor on or not, once you know that, then it's all about contrast. If everything is through one flavor, of course it's worked from time to time, but in general, interesting mixes have contrast. There are dark elements and bright elements. There are wide elements and right down the middle elements. There are distorted elements contrasted with clean elements. Again, there's no rule. That doesn't make, you can have all that and still have a boring mix. But in general, if you put everything through one process, it can overly homogenize. It can.
And I want to point out and interject here that the common wisdom around tubes is that you want them because of saturation. Like you want to run stuff through them because of distortion and saturation and harmonics. And really, like if you run stuff through tubes with headroom, that's not the impression you get at all.
Exactly.
right? So there's a sort of presentation that the circuit can provide, and knowing how to play with the headroom and the saturation you can get can help you create that contrast, and bring a kind of musicality to things, or a realism, or
it's a realism for me. That's why I say heat.
Yeah,
There's flame
but you may
underneath it.
not, like, if you have a certain kind of like a really believable virtual reality kind of reverb, you may not want to run that out.
Yeah.
Like, you may already have the best version of it in the box. And so, I mean, just tube doesn't mean better.
Yeah, it doesn't mean better. And
Yeah.
when I say I put it on, take it off, I put it on, I try it on almost everything, but I should specify, Jordan, that it's mostly on sounds that were created, obviously, in the box, that were... I went in for a whole hour, probably on a Live with Mad Rad about this. Like, I think about acoustic instruments synthetically and synthetic instruments acoustically.
It's a good episode.
Yes.
I would check that.
And the VLCs play a large role in that. If something is very synthetic sounding, I get a little bit more realism out of the VLC as a tool.
Just to tag on Spider's point, I think people do assume that all tube things are... about distortion or hype or saturation. It's true. Even the very best tube circuits technically do distort things. Understanding the difference between what the transformer is doing and what the tubes are doing is very important. But there is technical distortion. Like, yes, we have more harmonics, and emotional, the opposite. Whatever, the undistortion of making something feel realer. So it's... that's why mixing records is hard and
I mean, I've
subjective.
heard things run suddenly, a mix put through the tubes, and it actually sounds cleaner.
Yes.
Like, you get this impression of a kind of carved, sculpted, low end can sort of become more distinguished.
In
it's
its
hard to
place.
explain what the effect is.
Well, it's. I mean, we've talked to George about this. It's even order harmonics. It's bringing up the fundamentals that are in the key of the record, that the desirable musical elements of the record, when used correctly with headroom.
I'm deeply suspect of that theory, I got to say.
But
really?
That's a longer conversation.
Yeah.
But
what do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we don't need to go in the weeds on that.
Yeah.
But
I'd like to,
we should someday. But the perception of it being cleaner is, I think, the important thing. Whatever the underlying reality is, I'm just saying that we shouldn't pigeonhole tubes in this way.
Yes.
I think that's important.
Yeah, because it really limits like what you can do with them and the range of their value.
I'm not distorting a piano through the VLC.
An example, a very quick example, very common, is the idea that digital EQs are harsh and analog EQs are somehow warmer. So I use a digital EQ called Equilibrium by DMG. A very common, very popular outboard EQ for mastering engineers is the Dangerous Backs. God awful, bright, shiny, plasticky, broken sounding piece of gear. It is in no way cleaner or more real or fuller than the digital EQ that I use. So you want to get away from the tropes, and that's why you go deep and put everything through it for a couple of months, and then you'll know from it's like what we were talking with Stephen about the other day. A great conversation with Steve Dresser, and he's saying, well, my friend this and my friend, I was like, all right, I don't know your friends, and I don't know what they hear. I want you to build up these intuitions from first principles yourself. And of course, Stephen has, I'm not dismissing at all his engineering, but as a goal for all engineers, I want them to go deep on these things.
It's the only way you get stable.
Yeah.
In your practice.
I think so.
Is to really embody it.
Yeah.
And to be intuitional.
Should we jump?
Let's jump. That's great.
Man, we could have gone the whole night on that, just one alone.
I know, man.
All right, we got 3 more.
Oh, 3. Okay. Is this realistic?
Do they keep coming in?
Well,
I want to cover these guys.
I know. I don't want to leave anybody off.
I mean, I'm happy to do a couple next week too. Is it better to do them?
We're gonna have ideas next week.
Is it better to do them fresh?
Format.
I love it for this moment we're in this season. Oh, I'll go too, but I'm conscious that John, Graham, and Michael are all more tired. I could go all night. So what I would say is, I would prefer that you and John can give your all to these three, maybe fresh, then we sort of jam them in, you know.
Well,
I'm down for either.
Gerhard Westphalen.
Yes. I spoke to Gerhard on DM last week. Yeah, I'd love to hear what he has to say.
He did request that we get his in. So
all right, let's do it. Let's do it.
I also love the names of all of these, but he named it properly.
He needs to manage Wavy and request that Wavy gets his record mixed by whoever. Wait, this is an assistant dude.
Yeah.
A constant struggle that I've had as a young mastering engineer still coming up through the ranks and not necessarily working with A-list engineers is, how can I find engineers to work with who don't have the mindset that they can master all of their own work?
Ooh. Yeah. Why master? Why hire a mastering engineer, Rory?
Well, that's a very simple question. That's really kind of profound.
Yeah.
Why hire a mastering engineer? Well, I mean, being good enough, having a compelling enough offering, and communicating it to the world. So, you know, you need to, it's much like you said when you were trying to choose an engineer, by being out in the world speaking, you get to hear about how people think about it, how they care about it. I was just talking to Edsel last night about this. Is like, I find the majority of mastering engineers to be incredibly boring people. They're focused on the wrong things. They're like, hey bro, what dither do you use? And it's like, are we doing this now? We're going to talk about dither for a while? And like, I love geeky stuff, but it's like, where is the heart of this thing? What do you care about? And if you, I think it's important
but people who master their own work care about their own work, you know, so it's not just the caring piece. Like, what, you know, we always talked about objectivity. Like, if you record and mix a thing, you're disqualified.
Yes, I think so.
From
objectivity.
Man. Yeah. Everything's got to get mastered by someone else.
Yeah, the objectivity. Well,
not even a question.
But the thing is, he's, you know, we're not convincing Gerhard of the value of mastering. He's trying to convince young engineers of the value of it, what he can bring. So claiming that terrain and sort of communicating. I mean, I do this all the time with young people, because someone will say, I'll send a master and they say, we love it, but we just want to change the mix. It's like, okay, but you know, there is a limit to my objectivity here. It's finite. If we do, and I've gone through this with a client recently, if we do multiple changes on the mix, I'm not really good at, anymore as a mastering engineer.
You know, so if this is a strategy for how to find engineers who want to have their stuff mastered by him, who think it's more advantageous than doing it themselves, that requires the producers, the mix engineers, whoever it is that are doing their own mastering, to have this cultural shift. Convincing them that they don't have objectivity, I don't know, that doesn't sound like a strategy.
It's hard, yeah.
So like the things you put out into the world, how do you find them, right? Like how do you express the heart of a mastering practice so that people can find you?
This is,
I had something to add.
Go.
So this book that I've been reading, that $1 Million Consulting, one of the first things he says is like, people spend so much time trying to convince the wrong people that they should value them, when there are literally people that value that thing.
Yeah.
And like, I'm all for narratives. I'm not for narratives. That is a waste of energy.
Yeah. Yes.
Why are you convincing people that don't get it yet?
Exactly.
And quite frankly, an artist that doesn't have money, that's going to spend money for mastering, it might not make the most sense. Yes, it'll sound better, but like, you're going to go in the red to then be in the red for years if you don't want to be or don't feel comfortable being. Like, you know, that's the thing. But more importantly, don't continually swim against the current when there's people that are like, yo, we need a mastering dude. Where is he? You know, and you're there, but you're actually not there because you haven't presented yourself.
You're not out in the world.
So find mix engineers that are working with people that have the budget and the value, or understand the value of mastering, and they don't need to swim against current.
How does he do that?
Well, so Gerhard is in Calgary.
The same way we told Wavy, go on the internet, find mix engineers, see who's mixing bigger artists, maybe not huge artists, but see where there's credits that say mixed and mastered, and hit those dudes up. Not the mastering dudes, hit the mixing dudes up.
I think it ties
Make
somewhat
friends.
to John's point recently about speaking like an artist, and communicating things that I find that most mastering engineers, and I've only had DMs with Gerhard, so I don't have a sense yet of how he thinks about it. But most mastering engineers are too focused on technical stuff. They're too hung up on details, and they don't seem like they love music the same way that musicians do and producers do. They don't seem excited about grooves and bass lines. They seem like focused on graphs and uptight stuff. And they seem to be constantly saying, oh, slow down. Oh, not now. No, we can't put that much low end. Oh, no, we must high pass. It's like, is it all rules here? Like, can we make a record? Can we have some fun?
We must high.
You know what I mean? It's like these kind of...
I don't high pass.
Yeah. So I think that finding common language with artists is certainly very important. And I mean,
a mastering engineer to high pass. I'm sorry. Wait, what?
This is like most people most of the time are just doing it by default.
Just trying to get loud.
Yeah, it's a longer topic.
I know.
No,
but
yeah, I know. Yeah,
but
that changes everything.
The common language. This is the first time hearing about this. This is being done to songs every day for just $1 a day. You can save a song
from high pass filter. Yeah.
I think that's a big question, and I'm going to think on it. Gerhard and I are due to talk this week, so I will come up with a better answer for him.
Are we cutting directly to lathes? Like, what do we need to high pass? Sorry. I'm still hung up on this.
John's just sitting up all night with the light on. What are they doing to these songs?
It is a big question. It's a branding question. It's a practice question. It's a know thyself question.
Yeah,
it's all in the branding.
I'd say it's a marketing question more than a branding question. I think it's.
You have to. You have to know who you are and who your customers are. You have to know. You have to develop your voice.
Yes.
In order to market it, I mean, you could market a thing that is unclear.
And being good is not useful if people don't know you're good. If they can't get access to it, if they can't sense it. Because the thing about mastering is you've got to pay for it before you get to hear it. You know what I mean? You've got to do it. It's a leap of faith with a new guy or girl. So you're asking someone to trust you in a way before they...
Yeah, but you know what you're asking them to trust is that it's valuable. That's what I'm saying. It's a value-based debate, so to speak, of like, hey, you don't value this thing? Let me do it for free for you and then see if you value it. It's like, well, you just said it's free.
Yeah, it already has no
This
value.
is what I mean. You're swimming up current, and it's like... There's people that are paying for it right now, right this minute. There is someone exchanging a Bitcoin for a master.
NFT. Two old guys. Someone is exchanging a barrel of salt for a loud record.
Hey guys, I want to say that this is great. I think
I'm having fun.
We should do this a bit more regularly. I didn't realize that our community had such thoughtful questions to ask us, and maybe they're in my DMs and I've ignored them because I don't check. But we should do this more regularly. It sounds like I got a lot out of it too.
Very much so.
So thanks everyone for participating.
So who did
trying to end it right now?
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to end it right now.
He's like rolling the credits, like no, it's an after credits.
He's like, Graham, music.
We got two. We're almost there.
What about the
we're going in overtime for the community.
Hours.
We didn't plan well. This is our first time.
I'm going to pee.
Go pee.
Yeah,
Go pee. We got you
with that.
That's why we're four.
This is today's...
We'll use the overhead mics to make sure that we get some good Foley, the B&Ks.
Yeah.
This is from Jared Masters.
Hi, first time caller, long time listener. I'm in a place right now where I'm trying to build a team, and I'm looking for a more long-term relationship with a mixing engineer and a mastering engineer. I'm doing a lot of scoring stuff for commercials and possibly film coming up, but also I'm releasing music as an artist, and I'm producing for artists. So would you recommend me trying to hone in a team and have my go-to mix and mastering engineer for all of those things? Or should I try to find one who does, mixing for a specific genre for an artist, and then go to a different mixing engineer for, the score? I'm just kind of feeling that out right now and would love your guys' input on it. Love, guys. Thanks for doing this tonight.
I have a thought. It's like the reverse of what we said earlier, but this is a specialization thing where I think it does make sense. For movie scores, there's totally different constraints from a record. Not totally different, but wildly different. They're longer songs.
Different requirements.
Different requirements. That's what I meant. And constraints, I guess.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I think for that is like almost, that's not even genre really. It's like two different forms of recorded audio. So I think it would make sense to
hold up there, because there's score John Williams and there's score Trent Reznor.
Right.
So that it very much depends on like their score. Like Sophie is doing both, and Ian, you know what I mean? Sometimes it is more strings and
but they're still delivering 5/1 and shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing film score, you're delivering.
Yeah, no, I'm not minimizing
level
that, but
is
just
different. Like
just
it's a whole different workflow.
Yeah, there are different.
It's 48K, bro.
But a lot of
48K, bro.
A lot of. I think it's a really good question, which is, so we've talked plenty of times about the value of building partnerships and have seen it work as different parts of various partnerships. We've seen that sort of how over time working with a given client you can level up.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have your guy and you've been going to him for years, and the label insists you use someone else, and you've just discovered your new guy because he's better, or he taught you something about whatever. Yeah. So I think there's value in building partnerships, and there's value to being open to sort of happenstance and new collaborators and
leveling up.
Yeah.
And handling it all like a mensch.
And budget, and budgets matter, for this too. Budgets will determine a lot, There isn't a $500 mixer who I'm generalizing wildly here, who I would say is ready to mix, mainstream pop and score.
Mm-hmm.
That's a much bigger ask than a $5,000 mixer. And then if you got 5,000,
hearing somebody mix a score and records, right? Like, how do I put it? Like, a Noah Snyder immediately comes to mind.
Greg
right?
can do it.
He's doing both. These guys can do both. Part of a regular team with overlapping deadlines and stuff, like, I don't know that it makes sense. And also if the engineers you're working with are seeking to level up, doing both for money as a career almost stops making sense at a certain point. You see what I mean? So for if you're building a team, thinking about each of the team members and their trajectory would be an important part of the decision making.
Yeah. As an aside, I have 2 clients who use me regularly, 2 younger engineers, and one of them uses me for all of their loud pop stuff and sends their acoustic stuff, because they had a relationship with this guy for a long time, to another guy, which is cool. The other client is...
You're like, yo, can we trade?
The other client is the exact opposite. He sends me his rootsy stuff and sends his pop bangers to someone else, because he, and has actually never tried me for a pop banger, but has a sort of an idea around what I offer. Yeah. So they both have stories about who I am or what I do.
And categories that you
categories, yeah. So I think I'm curious about what Gerhard means when he talks about score, because it could be very modern electronic leaning, sort of tension pads and synths, or it could be, I mean,
yeah.
I don't think it's John Williams type level of scoring, but I could be wrong.
But it's a whole delivery thing.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's just, I mean, all the
operations seems so different.
Yes, and that stuff isn't as scary as it. I mean, it is scary at the level of.
I'm not scared. I'm just saying
A-list movie, but it's there. You know,
that's what I mean. Like as you look at the trajectory, and at a certain point, it stops making sense.
Mm. And especially if you're trying to build a team, which I would then assume that's long term, and you're looking like
if you want everyone to stay motivated, they all need to be on an upward trajectory.
Yeah,
I don't know.
If it's for a project, all right, you might be able to get away with it, but you might also regret it. It's like, man, this knowledge project episode keeps coming up, but it's like, you're never going to eliminate risk, but there's ways of kind of reducing it. And like you're going to reduce the risk by working with someone who's done scores before on a score, and someone that's mixed a pop record on a pop record.
Yeah, you don't want to get a call from the dub stage.
I suppose an interesting question is why build a team? Like why build a team at all?
I think that's in the question. I mean, it's.
I mean, he's doing commercial work. Assuming a lot of input coming in, and
I think the team implies a collective practice. So if you have a sort of personal practice and it's synchronized to other people, there are benefits there that maybe you can't get otherwise.
Shorthand, trust,
and again the lines ahead of you on the road.
Clear responsibilities.
If you're synchronized and you're standardized and you're in a rhythm. Again, the shorthand and all that sort of thing. But structurally,
I'm not suggesting not building a team, but asking the question sort of fundamentally: Why would you? Are we assuming you should have a team because people have teams? Like, why are you building?
Well, there's so many questions to get more specific. About that.
If we talk about team building and what that, I mean, there's wormholes there. But I think specifically for this, if everything else was answered in the right way, and we're still at this question. That's a question where I would say specialist. It does make sense. You know, when I speak to Eva, like she doesn't talk the same way that like John talks about mixing records. It's just a different requirement. So I don't know. Yeah.
Again, different social circles too.
Yes,
true
for score mixers and record makers. You know,
I think so.
And the length of these projects are different, incredibly different. I mean, like. You know, Eva will say it was a whole year, 2 years, like a record, 3 years maybe. And that record might be, you know, a week to work on.
Yeah.
So there's that too. And then that requires like different file management or how you know, what's local, what's not, or
just bandwidth to take on.
It's just the optimization seems so divergent.
Yes.
My operations brain is getting all excited.
Yeah.
He said not 5.1 and also not orchestral, Trent Reznor.
Yeah, so that's
48K. Is it easy enough to switch?
I know we've called the Links helpline.
All right. Last one. This is a long written one that I'm now going to have to suffer through reading. Here I go.
You want me to read it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are we going to do all when there's 50? Like what? Are we setting the precedent that there's all?
I think we're figuring out the number, which is less than what.
We're gonna talk about all this because there's a format question.
Yeah.
This is a lot.
But this is the last one.
Yeah.
3
hey guys,
paragraphs.
This is Lorenz from Vienna. First of all, I wanted to thank you so much for doing the podcast. Listening to your conversation is inspiring and helped me to make a lot more sense about the things I was doing and am doing. I've been thinking about some of the things you were discussing about community, and I tied it into some other things I'm reading about. Today, I wrote down some of it. I felt more like writing it to you rather than recording it. I hope that's okay. Community forms through overarching goals or myths. All big civilizations have had and still have these shared myths like religion, nation, or ideology and are founded on them. Now that we are slowly deconstructing these traditional beliefs through globalization, we are losing common goals. Thus, we are losing the feeling of community. Yet, there is still one big myth that almost everyone still believes in: money. Money makes us all cooperate all over the world, but not with the goal of building community. It's more or less the opposite. So if community is what we should strive for, should we? How can we form a common goal that encourages it? What are your thoughts about that? Would love to hear your response.
Spider, thank you for writing in.
That's my nom de plume.
I think it's safe to say that Spider can take this one all the way home.
Oh God. I mean, man. I mean,
community,
this is the biggest question.
We should community.
Yeah,
yes.
we should community. The money, I don't know that the concept of money necessarily is destructive to community. I actually see it the other way around. It's an agreement, right? It's one of many, many agreements. And it facilitated a kind of community. It really set us on a trajectory as an entire planet to transcend all kinds of unpleasantness. And we're somewhere on that trajectory. It's a way of organizing. I mean, yes. The community. I mean, I don't know what more there is to say about it. I mean, where do you think the question is pointing? Because I mean, I think it's just so obvious. Like, community is everything. We are communal creatures.
The implication that I gather from the question, and it's something, I think it's a false dichotomy, is that somehow money is the antithesis of community, that it runs against it, that we can't, that if you have more money, it becomes zero-sum or isolating or about the individual. And I don't think that's true. And it goes back to what I was saying to Eduardo's question, is kind of like, you don't have to play every game that everyone lays out for you. You don't have to play the Instagram game. You don't have to play the corporate game. You don't have to buy Coca-Cola because they say it makes you happy. It probably doesn't. So you get to choose. And money is very useful and gives you kinds of freedoms and kinds of powers that you can't have without it, and choice. So getting too hung up on the idea that it somehow undermines community, there are people.
Well, freedom does undermine community, because when you take it to extremes, it is an individual doing whatever they want despite the impact on community, on family, on community, on the world.
But say, for example, you can have the kind of money that gives you security and gives you freedom that you choose to wield or not. You can, say, I have enough money in the bank to do this, but I'm going to stay in my hometown.
To exercise your freedoms.
Take care of my mom because she's elderly.
Yeah.
So even though I have enough money in the bank to sail around the world, I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
But that money gives you security.
Sure.
I mean, we're being very overly simplistic, right?
Yeah.
But I guess, we're all about community. I think the four of us are super committed to this idea and trying to find new ways to do it. When some of the old ways, as the writer, I forgotten the name, sorry. Lorenz says, are falling apart. And I think it's this constant theme that we're coming back to is, a lot of these things are falling apart. And honestly, I'll dance on the fucking grave of the Catholic Church and things like that all day long.
Yeah.
But these human needs are not being met without them.
But we can't deconstruct everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And that's quite a new realization for me.
If everything is if there's a deconstruction trend that's general or global, it becomes a mission of what to protect. So from that trend.
It's a little bit of a weird aside, but so I've spoken on here about growing up Catholic and despising the Catholic Church, and in Ireland we have a terrible, terrible arc with all of the abuse and stuff that happened and that came out as I was sort of a teenager and into young adulthood and whatever. And so I really hate the Catholic Church. It's a joyless institution to me. And I would often have said to people in the past, look, in my hometown, there's 1,000 people gather in the cathedral every week. And they sit for an hour in this cold room and they mumble a prayer, say, oh, Holy Mary, Holy Mary. And the priest gives a really boring sermon. There's very little music and they leave. And I would say, I used to make the case, what if those 1,000 people, instead of going in that cold church on that Sunday, went out into the world for an hour and did something nice? If all they did was just go and smile at someone, right? And I would make the case that I think this would be a better use of their time. And now I feel, sort of from this vantage point, that if there is a better way to do it, I can spend all of my time outside of a Catholic church with a thing saying "down with priests" and, with a banner, or I can build something better. I can build something that serves these human needs. If there's a more celebratory way to get together for an hour, I should start it or shut the fuck up, right? And I feel like that's the case for all of us.
Yeah.
We should, if there's a way to build community, stop waiting for someone else to do it. You start it. It can be a community of 2 to start, and then 4, and then 6, and it can be pottery or knitting or cooking or mixing records or
whatever
whatever.
the common goal. I mean, Lorenz is asking you about common goals. I mean, what are your goals?
Yes.
And who shares them? And
so, that back to that human need piece. This it's not going away. The need to be part of something, to be heard, to be supported, and to sort of even out to hedge against the vulnerability of being a frail biological entity in a dangerous world. We need community.
We need to cover each other's blind spots and all the things.
And we need help to level up. And I'm sure we could do a whole episode
I know this
on that.
this question.
So we got 10 more emails.
It touches on it's really the bullseye of where my intuitions are going to spend time for long-term benefit. And I mean, we will continue to talk about this topic, Lorenz, for weeks.
Yeah, I think so. And I think just having a positive viewpoint on it. It's like, what are you building? It's so, as we've seen in recent history, it's so easy to break things apart. Yeah. And some of them deserve to be destroyed. Some institutions, some cultures, some churches deserve to go. But not all of them. Yeah. And the main thing is, what are you building?
More constructive than deconstructive.
I think so. Make something better.
Deconstruction's easy.
Yes,
it really is.
Yeah.
I think a big theme for me tonight is just this reframing across the board on so many of these thoughts that came in. We did a lot of reframing or suggested reframing as the answer. So thanks for all of you guys for helping me reframe things.
The same,
and thanks for the community for helping us reframe things for them and for us.
Yeah, I said I reposted the story today, and I was like, these conversations, direct conversations that I'm having, they fuel us. They're the stories that we tell each other and the experiences. So I really do feel filled up after tonight. I feel like re-energized.
This IG thread is so fun tonight. So
cool.
Fun. When we're talking about Salt, dropping Salt Bay emojis in there, and it's popping off. But people seem to really enjoy it.
Apparently, Salt Bay opened up a Hollywood restaurant.
We got to get him on air.
Which is crazy. I'm never going. This is
what is Salt Bay? I don't know what this is.
Oh, we gotta go. Time to go.
Okay.
We definitely need to do this again.
Okay.
This is really fun.
Yeah, I think so. Tight, guys. Peace out.
Conversations is produced and mixed by Dylan Seals. The Conversations theme was performed and recorded by the Hazelrigg brothers.